All right, assalamu alaikum. As we welcome you to another episode of the Mr. Islam Answers Back show live. Got another good, interesting topic for you today. This one we'll be addressing the so-called First Lady of ISIS. And as you'll see through the show, you'll see that she really wasn't the First Lady of ISIS at all. You know, there's claims of, wa alaikum salam, Brother Sammy. There's claims that she was radicalized. You're going to listen to you're going to see as we go through this interview with her. She was on the Glenn Beck show, Glenn Beck podcast or whatever. And you're going to see from her own words that the story that they're spinning about her doesn't match what she's saying. You're going to see that it appears that she wasn't radicalized at all, right? You're going to see that she wasn't the First Lady of ISIS at all because she spent no time with ISIS. She was out of there before ISIS, you know what I mean? So, but you're going to see, so as usual, Dan Jaw, welcome, assalamu alaikum salam. This is another case of the so-called ex-Muslim who gets fame and book deals and gets to be on TV shows because they were supposedly radicalized, and now they're supposedly the experts on Islam now, even, you know what I mean, even though you'll see that they are ignorant. And we're just going to go through it, and we're going to just chop her story apart. And here's the reason why we're doing it. I want to be understood. Her experience is her experience. No problem, right? If she went through something, that's what she went through. The reason why we take issue with these people, though, is not the experience that you go through, but that these people take this and then they turn it into a reason to promote anti-Islamic bigotry, right? So that's what I want people to understand. I'm not attacking her personally based on her experience. Her experience is her experience, right? No, I don't have no problem with that. Whatever you went through is what you went through. The problem we have, though, is that now you're taking your experience, right? Wa alaikum salam. How do you say your name? Shakiro Harun. Welcome. Right. So the reason why we're taking issue with her is not from her experience, but because she's once again, like most of these ex-Muslims, getting fame and then taking that to promote anti-Islamic bigotry. That's the problem we have. So I want both Muslims and non-Muslims, haters and supporters, to understand what's my position when I'm doing a video like this. Okay, her experience again is her experience, but as unfortunately, like most of these so-called ex-Muslims who were ex-Muslims, they always have this thing where they come out and now you're bigots against Islam, and you're painting an evil picture of all Muslims, of all Islam. And again, here and there, and remember, if you go back and check my videos, I've been saying this for years. They always claim that, oh, we're not talking about all Muslims. But then as you listen to them speak, it's clear that they are, right? So they'll put that disclaimer, I'm not trying to be Islamophobic. She says that in an interview. I'm not trying to be Islamophobic, right? But then she goes on and says the Quran is a book of jihad. The Quran is evil. If you're a Muslim, you're enslaved. You're going to die. It's about killing. So I'm like, well, you just said you weren't talking about all Muslims, but then you go on ahead and claim that the book that every Muslim believes in is teaching them to be killers and murderers and this and that. So it's like, well, you know what I mean? So it's like, how are you separating the two? What you're saying after you make your disclaimer doesn't fit what you're propagating. You know what I mean? But like I said, we're gonna go through and we're gonna expose that she never really was radicalized. From her own words, you'll see that it's clear that she wasn't radicalized at all, right? You'll see that the information she says about Islam, as usual, as most of these ex-Muslims, it shows that they're lying. They're trying to sensationalize it to sound good for the audience, right? And she does something that a lot of the haters are gonna be upset about, because she says something that I've always been saying about these people, and she proves it in statements that she makes. Right? That's the big surprise. I'm gonna save that for you towards the end. You're going to see that she says something that I've been saying about a lot of these haters, right? A lot of these ex-Muslims, especially those who come from, other immigrant communities, right? She says something that I've been saying is what I've always said is many times the motivating factor for their anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim bigotry. But you're gonna have to wait towards the end to hear it. But you'll see how it all comes together, and how what she says about the way she felt when she was growing up and what she feels she wishes she was. That's a little hint. That's a little hint right there. She says she wishes she was something, right? And you will see that I've always said that this thing that she admits that she wishes she was ties into the anti-Muslim bigotry and the way these people always go to a certain group of people and always are professing their hatred for Islam and Muslims. And they do it sometimes. They're more blatant and bold with their bigotry towards Muslims than the people that they're catering to, right? But you'll see, right? So let's get right into it, everybody. All right, let's get right into it. Okay, and we're gonna do it like how I do my videos like this. We'll listen to the person talk. We'll stop. We'll give our critique. We'll give our comments and whatever, and we'll do it like that. All right. So here she is on a Glenn Beck podcast. By the way, let me say that we know that we're using this footage under the Fair Use Act, which allows you to use copyrighted material if it is for educational purposes or commentary and such. So I'm going to be making a commentary on this. So we're using this under the Fair Use Act, which allows you to use copyrighted material for educational and commentary purposes. All right. So let's begin. All right, you guys ready? All right, cool. All right, everybody ready? Cool. Before I begin, let me send out a quick tweet real quick. Remind everybody that the show has started. All right, real quick. Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, you guys ready? Hold on to your seats as we begin here. All right, so let's take a look. Let's listen to how Glenn. Listen, I want you to listen closely how he characterizes her. And then as you get what he says, we're going to go through her interview, and you'll see how the way they're promoting her doesn't really match to what she's saying, right? So listen, she's known as the so-called first lady of ISIS, right? The so-called first lady of ISIS because her husband was supposed to be, I guess, a high command or second in command of ISIS, and even that story is kind of strange too. I have some misgivings about that as well, because this guy is a white American dude. Father was in the military, right? And throughout the interview, she mentions how when they got together, he used to be like he worked for some type of computer thing. He was like some kind of computer programmer or something like that, and he had been working with an undercover CIA agent, something like that. Supposedly it was a setup, but he was working with a CIA agent. Then throughout the interview, she's saying that after that, after he went to jail for a little bit, good relations with the FBI. So I'm like, And then certain things she says about this guy, that he knows all these different languages. I'm like, In my conspiratorial mind, I'm like, was he perhaps a CIA agent himself who infiltrated ISIS? You know what I mean? Because how is it that a white guy can go all the way over there and become the second in command? I mean, damn, is white privilege over in the Middle East too? Right? Do white people have white privilege in the Middle East too? That a white guy can go to over there and all of a sudden y'all make him the second in command? You know what I'm saying? Like, damn, white privilege is everywhere, huh? White boy can go over to the Middle East, say he's Muslim, and y'all make him the second in command of y'all. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, damn. But like I said, when she was mentioning how, he supposedly met this undercover CIA agent and then from there, she said from that, supposedly it was an undercover CIA agent. And for the CIA, I guess the CIA agent got him to start selling he was selling Bin Laden propaganda online. I'm like, well, that sounds strange too. You know what I'm saying? Like you would trust somebody who comes to you and says, hey man, I want you to sell. Can you sell Bin Laden propaganda online for me? Especially at that time, everybody knows that, hey man, you stay away from Bin Laden stuff because you're gonna get yourself in trouble. Especially online, the CIA, FBI can easily start tapping into you and following what you're doing. But supposedly, she said he started after he got in contact with this undercover CIA agent. He started selling Bin Laden propaganda online. So I'm like, okay, that sounds weird right there. You know what I'm saying? And then he's able to go overseas, right? She says that he's able to know all these language. He knows Arabic really good. He knows like all these languages. And I'm like, yo, that's usually how they do the CIA, right? When you're a CIA agent, don't they make sure you learn the languages and all that kind of, they make you like really good at the languages so they can use you as an agent. Now, of course, again, I admit this is my own conspiratorial theories, but to me, I think there's something about that, because to me, that sounds really unstrange that a white boy from America who comes from a military family, his father was highly ranked and all that stuff like that, that a white boy from America can go overseas, join ISIS, supposedly, and then become the second in command. I'm like, how does that happen? How does that happen? I mean, I know white privilege is big in America, but how do you do that? How do you go overseas and become the second in command as a white boy? You know what I mean? And then she said something else that raised my suspicions as well, is that she said that because Glenn Beck asked her if he had died, if he got killed. She said, well, supposedly he's dead. Nobody really knows whether he's dead or not. So I'm like, again, those are red flags for me, because I'm like, oh, okay, so they can't even confirm if he's dead or not, huh? So they took care of their CIA asset, huh? They got him, who knows where he's at, right? Who knows where he's at? He may not be dead, but again, supposedly he's dead. But again, she said they don't know. They don't know for certain if he's dead or not. So I'm like, see, this stuff sounds suspicious to me. But again, let's go through the interview, and you're gonna see why I raise all these red flags, and why this her whole story seems suspicious to me, and really not credible, and how she's spreading misinformation about Islam, bigotry about Muslims. We're gonna get into all that. So let's do it. Let's begin. Here we go.
This is to be one of the most riveting guests we have had. It was 6 years ago. The woman you're about to hear from dodged machine gun fire as she carried her 3 children, while pregnant with a 4th, across the Syrian border into Turkey. Her husband, now the top-ranking American commander in ISIS, paid a human trafficker to take his family to a bus stop. From there, they were on their own. This story is very complicated. This mother of...
So let me stop right there. So you see, right? White boy from America goes over there. You heard him. He becomes the top ranking, she said? Top ranking American official in ISIS? How does that happen? How does a white boy go over to the Middle East, and the people over there, y'all trust him? Y'all trust the white boy so good that he becomes y'all make him your leader? You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all wouldn't be suspicious? Even if he is coming over there talking about Assalamu alaikum, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, you still wouldn't be like, you know what I mean? I mean, I know we're not supposed to have suspicion of Muslims, but still, you wouldn't be cautious? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could see you accepted him in, but y'all made him y'all leader? Y'all let him be y'all leader. Y'all didn't have no thought, like, you know what? He may be Muslim, but maybe not make him the leader. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that just sounds out of place. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how you make him the leader? How you let a white boy come over from America and y'all just make him, y'all just let him become y'all leader? So either they're really stupid, and the Middle East is also caught up on white privilege as well, and y'all let the white boy become y'all leader. Or, like I said, there's something strange about this. Or this guy is some kind of CIA agent or something. Because that just sounds really weird and strange to me. And unlikely. I would say it sounds unlikely that would happen. That they would just trust him so trustingly. But let's continue.
4 small children was radicalized at a very young age.
And let me stop. No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't radicalized. Like I said, you're gonna listen to the debate. And you're going to see throughout this interview that she basically saying she really didn't like none of this stuff. You're going to see that she's constantly complaining about wearing the hijab. She didn't like it, right? So I'm like, you don't sound like you were radicalized at all. Talking about she wanted to do stuff that other people at her age were doing. I'm like, again, that you said, then when you radicalized then, right? But again, let's continue.
Believed in jihad in the name of Allah, and it was her mission. Her husband was an American from Texas. He was her partner in terror, and they traveled the world hoping to recruit radicals.
And again, this is a lie too. Again, when you listen to the interview, she's gonna say that she really wanted to get away from her husband the whole time. She never really liked him. She's gonna tell you she never really liked him. She's saying she hated wearing the hijab. She always wanted to take it off. And no, she didn't. I don't know where he gets that she was recruiting anything. Because in the interview, she says she was trying to get away. She wanted to go home. She wanted to get out of there. So how is she radicalized? How is she recruiting anybody? But again, this is how they sensationalize these fakers, these fake ex-Muslims, right? This is how they sensationalize them to make them palatable to the audience. To say, oh, wow, yeah, she must really be credible. She must really got a story, right? She was radical. They did the same thing with all these other people. What's the guy? Walid Shubat. Remember that guy back in the days? Same thing. He claims he was part of the PLO and, he was a terrorist. What's that other guy's name? I forgot his name. Salim. I forgot his first name. But it was Salim. This guy Salim became a Christian evangelist preacher. Same thing. He was part of the terrorists. Everybody's story is the same thing. I was part of the terrorist group. I was in the organizations or whatever the case. So now they propping her up like she was actually in there, like as if she was deeply involved with ISIS or something like that. Listening to her story, she was not involved at all. She got out of Syria before anything really was able to take place. She got out of there. Her own word. She said it in the interview. She got out of there. Matter of fact, her husband got her out of there. Her husband is the one who, as you just heard, he's the one who put her on the bus and let, all right, you go, you're on your own, get out of here. So she wasn't even there, by the time ISIS really got hold of anything. So she wasn't no first lady of ISIS. She wasn't his partner in terror or anything. So this is a bunch of sensationalism.
While they raise their sons, same time, to be holy warriors. But
and right, what he just said right there, that they raised their sons to be holy warriors, another lie. In the interview, which I'm going to show you, she says that she had called the FBI at one point and her in-laws, her husband's parents, to say, look, can you help get us out of here? Because he's trying to take us to Syria or whatever, and I want to get my children out of here, because if you don't get us out of here, he'll turn them into terrorists. So they didn't radicalize their children at all. Glenn Beck, what the hell are you talking about? She says it herself that she wanted to get out of there before any of that happened. So that's a lie. They didn't radicalize their children. She wasn't radicalized either. You'll see, like I said, she basically said the whole time she was really hating Islam, hating it, wear the hijab, hating the cover, hating Muhammad. Muhammad is this, that. So I'm like, well, where was the radicalization at? Where were you radicalized at if you telling us that the whole time you were with your husband, you pretty much hated all of this stuff? You see? So again, this is sensationalism. So they can try to make her sound like she's credible when she speaks against Islam. Let's continue.
Something changed because while living here in America, he went to prison and a window opened. Today's podcast asks several questions and attempts to have them answered. What drives a young, intelligent, beautiful person to become radicalized? And if it does happen, is it possible for that person to de-radicalize themselves and seek redemption? This story is going to attempt to answer these questions. It's not only a literal journey spanning multiple countries, multiple war zones, time zones, but it is also an internal journey of the mind and the heart as she grapples with breaking free of her radical ideology and extremist husband. Today, she works with organizations to help counter violent extremists. She uses her past experience to try to de-radicalize those that have become radicals. She works in prisons. She works with U.S. law enforcement. Today's episode, the Islamic terrorist's wife.
All right, let's get to it. Let's skip ahead of all this stuff here. All right.
And he's married my mom for a passport. That's pretty normal.
Oh, by the way, now, yeah, I want you guys to take a listen to her little bit of her life story, because she tells us that her parents were not religious people, right? She says her parents were not religious. So once again, this lets us get a glimpse into her, her so-called being Muslim. If your parents were not religious, then again, we see that she's just another ignorant person who came from a Muslim cultural background, right? But when it came to the knowledge and practice of Islam, it was zero, right? And her story is really conflicting, because at one point she's saying her parents weren't really religious, but supposedly they make her and her brothers and sisters or something like that read the Quran 2 hours a day. So I'm like, well, wait, that doesn't make sense. If your parents are not religious, why in the hell are they telling you? Why the hell are they forcing you to read the Quran every day when they themselves are not religious? Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, the story just doesn't follow. So listen, just listen.
Yeah, it's pretty acceptable in a Muslim culture. And they weren't religious. But what happened to me as a teenager was from the results of being bullied at high school, I ended up turning to religion to cope. And the only religion accessible to me at the time was Islam.
Okay, so wait. Mom and dad, not religion.
Kind of culturally religious.
What does that mean, culturally?
Like, they would force us to read the Quran 2 hours every day in a language we don't understand. It's like Catholics reading Latin and not knowing a word that they're...
Come on. So you telling me you didn't have First of all, she's in the UK. So you telling me you didn't have an English Quran? Tanya, you telling me you didn't have an English Quran? So your y'all just sitting there with the Quran in Arabic, don't know Arabic, and y'all don't got a translation? Even if you have one in your own language, from your own country, you didn't have no Quran. I find that hard to believe, that you in the UK and y'all are sitting there with no English Quran or Quran in your language in your house at all. And I find it strange that, or unbelievable, that you as you just heard, admitted that the parents are not religious, but your unreligious parents are concerned about you reading the Quran when they're not religious, according to you?
They're saying.
Okay.
And the way they could control us was teaching us. They didn't want us to be too westernized, because that was forbidden in Islam. It would insult their culture.
Again, if your parents are not religious, then why the hell do they care if you're too westernized? And why would they care if it's against the Quran when they themselves are going against religion? According to your own words, they're not religious. You see what I'm saying, people? This doesn't make sense, right? If your parents are not religious, then why the hell would they care if you're being westernized? They don't care either, right? So it makes no sense that they don't care about religion, but they want to make sure that you're not going against the Quran, against Quran or Islam. But they themselves are going against it by your own admission. They're not religious. This doesn't make, boy. Just all you gotta do is listen carefully to these people, and they'll expose themselves.
It would be like things like wearing makeup, wearing heels, wearing jeans. We would be slut shamed. But naturally, we wanted to be integrated, but our parents were the obstacle.
Was your mom did she buy into that? Was she more of a mom or a wife of somebody that was kind of keeping her under the thumb? Or
No.
what was
The problem was, I think, I'm going to be really candid here, but my mom always wanted a husband who would be a patriarch and a provider.
All right, we're going to skip ahead, because right here, she's just talking about her family and that her father was, I guess he was a deadbeat, didn't have a job or whatever. So it's really irrelevant to the thing. But I just wanted you guys to hear that part where, suppose, her parents are not religious, right? And you heard her herself. You heard her when she said, oh, they wanted to be integrated. You know what I mean? But she said she turned to religion. So which is it? Did you turn to religion of Islam? Or did you want to be integrated, wearing jeans, heels, makeup, and all the stuff like that? And your parents are not religious, but somehow they want y'all to read the Quran 2 hours a day. They're concerned about you being westernized because supposedly it's against Islam, but they're not religious. Right? They're not religious, but they want you to make sure you ain't doing nothing against Islam, but they themselves are going against Islam because they're not religious, according to your words. Right? It just doesn't fit, brothers and sisters. It just doesn't make any sense here, what I'm hearing from her. All right? So let's go ahead and, like I said, this part right here is a long part where she just kind of goes into her family. You know, her mother and her father were abusive. Father was a deadbeat, and mother wanted somebody who could bring home the money or whatever. It's just basically her personal stuff. I just want to deal with. I really want to deal with the stuff where we get into the anti-Islamic stuff. All right, let's get into that. All right, so the first place where we get into the first one of the first Islamic tropes is let's see. I think it's minute 29:54. All right, let's see. So about right here, let's start about right here.
To make England a Islamic state, which was a complete joke. But so I wasn't really with any of them, but I had lots of friends, and they were all from different groups who all supported jihad in different ways. Hizb ut-Tahrir HT, they said they were non-violent, but only up until a certain time. They're like, we don't do jihad now, we do it later. And it's the same with the Sufis. They're like, now is not the time to fight. We'll fight at the end of days when Christ returns to Damascus, and we'll kill off all the Jews. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I'd never met a Jewish person. I was like, okay, the only references I have to Jewish people are from the Quran, and as far as I know, God curses them, God hates them. All this stuff, but it is the most anti-Semitic book. I mean, if there's any book full of hate speech, it's the Quran, and that's where I learned it from.
Okay, so on that point, right? Again, we all know that she's being dishonest, right? Because first of all, the Quran gives an invitation to the children of Israel, right? To the Israelites, to the Jews, to come to Islam, right? It reminds them of the covenant that Allah made with them and invites them to come. The things that where it makes condemnation of some of the Jews is based upon religious things, that their disobedience to God. It talks about how, of course, the Israelites had been disobedient before, worshiping the golden calf, being, of course, rejecting Jesus. It talks about, of course, how they had violated the Sabbath in times past, and how those who had violated, had been punished, which of course is in the Torah as well. So it talks about them in this sense, but again, it still makes an open invitation to them to come to Islam, that it invites them to Islam, so that way the covenant between them and Allah can still be fulfilled. You see? So she, of course, is using the tropes. The tropes. It's Miss Tanya, if Islam is the most, according to you, then what must you feel about the Bible then? Because of course through this, the Christians are good, right? As usual, the Christians are good. Islam is talking anti-Jewish or whatever. Then I wonder what she thinks about the Bible, right? What does she think about the Bible, the New Testament, for example, which says that the Jews are not of their father Abraham, they're of their father the devil. What do you think, Tanya, about the New Testament? Matthew chapter 23 talks about how the Jews are cursed, right? Because they killed the prophets. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about Revelations, Tanya, that says that those who say they are Jews but are really not, but are the synagogue of Satan, right? How you feel about that? Revelations chapter 2, verse 9, Revelations chapter 3, verse 9. How much she feel about that? How much you feel about Thessalonians that says the Jews killed Jesus and the Jews work against all humanity? How much you feel about that then? If the Quran, how, you know what I mean? Like, if you think the Quran is the worst, then are you ignoring the Bible, or is this part of your game to make the audience, the white audience, the predominantly white audience that watches this nonsense, feel good about their hatred against Islam? And of course, I believe it's the later. This is just stuff to, basically confirm for them That all, yep. See, I knew it. Yeah, I knew that Islam was evil. I knew that Islam was anti-Jewish or whatever. Yeah, I knew it. I know it. See, and look, she's telling us it's that same game. It's that same game being played. All right.
I didn't have to learn it from any group. You just have to read any translation, and it's there. The misogyny, the barbarity, the war booty, all this stuff. And
so again, so she's saying that as you can see, she's basically saying she hated all this stuff. Then that's my point. If you were reading the Quran and you said all this hatred and all this stuff like is there, then and obviously she says she doesn't agree with it, then how is it that you became radicalized? How is it that you became radicalized if you were reading this stuff and you believe it was hatred and war and misogyny and all of this, but so supposedly you got radicalized? Like I said though, as we go throughout the interview, you're going to see that it appears she was never radicalized. She always had a problem with all this stuff, supposedly, right? You're gonna see throughout the interview that she's basically saying, look, even at those times when she was with her husband, that she didn't like this stuff, she didn't enjoy it, she hated it, whatever. So my point, if that's the case, when were you ever radicalized? Obviously never. So her story is a bunk. It's a bunch of bunk. All right. Let's see. The next point comes in at let's see, point 30. Oh no, 33. Oh yeah, okay, 33. We're gonna jump up to 33:41. I marked off all the points, so we didn't have to like wait through all of this nonsense. So we want to go to time marker 33:41. All right, let's start about right here.
question, because only we're told there's a verse in the Quran. I haven't read the Quran.
Listen to this, guys. Listen to this lie.
It's too traumatic for me, but it was like, you do not question God, God questions you.
There's no verse in the Quran that says that. Sorry, Tanya, there's no verse in the Quran that says you don't question God, but Allah questions you. No. Right? Now, what I think she's referring to, which is, again, the typical anti-Islamic charge, is the verse, but it doesn't say that you can't question Allah. And a lot of haters always use that verse, right? The verse goes something like, about it's the one about when people are coming asking a lot of questions, right? So it doesn't say that you don't question Allah, right? Or that you can't question anything. It just is talking about how the people, because they had all these different questions and stuff like that, that they might get the answer that may cause them some difficulty, because now they got to face the truth of the answer. So it says, but it basically says, but don't fear not, because ask when the Quran is being revealed, and Allah will reveal the answer to you. So it wasn't saying that you can't ask questions. It's just saying that, look, but when you keep asking these questions, be ready to face the reality or the truth of that question. You might not like it. You might not like the answer. But nonetheless, ask the questions, and when Allah will reveal the answers when the Quran is being revealed. So it doesn't say don't ask questions. See? But this is how they keep trying to form, again, this is all this sensationalism. This is all attempts to, she's doing this to make Islam sound bad and evil, and like it's a bunch of ignorant stuff. You can't question religion, you can't criticize, you can't think and all this stuff like this. It doesn't allow you to question it. No, the verse doesn't say you can't ask questions. It doesn't prohibit you from asking questions. See, and then in the verse itself, it actually says, but ask when the Quran is being revealed, and Allah will reveal the answer to you. So there you go. They're saying you can't ask. It's just saying that to be wary of asking a lot of questions that you may find difficult, because if you ask these questions and then Allah reveals the answer, now you're obligated, right? Now you're obligated. If Allah didn't speak on something, then let it be as it is. But if you asking all these questions about this stuff and Allah gives you an answer, now you obligated. Because if Allah says you got to do this or you can't do that, now you got to face that, and you might not be happy with that answer. That's all it was saying. It wasn't saying not to ask questions, but this is how they misconstrue. And this is what I believe, that she really is getting these talking points from the anti-Islamist. I think that she's getting a lot of these talking points from the anti-Islamists. It's not like she knew this stuff before, because there's stuff that she says throughout the interview that, again, give me cause to believe that she's just repeating, like they taught her this stuff after. after she got sent home from Syria or whatever, and they took her in, the government took her in, or whatever the case may be. Somebody trained her with these typical anti-Islamic tropes. Somebody trained her with this. Somebody said, somebody taught her these things. It doesn't seem that this was stuff that she, was thinking, all these kind of arguments like this, because I noticed she's repeating a lot of the anti-Islamic tropes, So let's hear a little bit more.
And then other things like imitate Muhammad and imitate Abraham. Well, these two guys, okay, Muhammad was a pedophile. Muhammad.
See that right there? That right there. Right? That right there, that's one of their typical anti-Islamic tropes. Muhammad was a pedophile, right? No, they always say that. Right? So you telling me, Tanya, that you knew about Islam all that time, and you felt Muhammad was a pedophile and you kept practicing Islam? Right? Or did somebody teach you that lie later on? Right? Did somebody teach you that lie later on? Because again, it seems weird to me that if you were Muslim and you already knew Muhammad was a pedophile, then why did you keep practicing Islam if you believe that that's what he was? It wasn't like anybody could stop you because your parents weren't religious. Right? Your parents weren't religious according to you. So if Muhammad was a pedophile to you, why'd you keep on, believing in it and going along with it? Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make one bit of sense to me.
Was, like, from what my understanding of my readings after I read Hugh Kennedy's book called The Caliphate, and I could clearly see Muhammad had an inferiority complex. Now,
you see right there, she just told on herself right there, see? She basically said that she did, see, these ideas comes from the non-Muslims, the ones who hate Islam. So she got her ideas from Hugh Kennedy, that Muhammad had a inferiority complex. See? So they take you in, they train you to have anti-Islamic polemics, right? They train you with this, and now she goes out and now she's spreading her anti-Islamic tropes to the world on how evil Islam is and the Muslims are and all this stuff like that. So she read Hugh Kennedy's book, and he taught you she said he taught you that Muhammad had an inferiority complex and was jealous of the Jews and the Christians. That's, you know what I'm saying? So it's clear that you've been shaped and formulated and trained to go out and do this stuff, right? It's okay. We got you. All right. Let's see. The next one, we'll let it play. We'll let it play because she's going to go into the next marker, which is at point 3509. But I'll just let it play from here, and then we'll deal with it.
Complex to Jews and Christians because they had moved on from polytheism to monotheism. They were moving ahead. And so he wanted to catch on. I guess he felt some sort of shame about the polytheist ways of Arabia. These connections didn't come until later. I'm jumping from.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right.
But John never saw it, and then.
And so
but like imitating Abraham in Islam, the scriptures they've been changed from the Old Testament, and things like. You've got to imitate Abraham. He's the father. Abraham wanted to sacrifice his son. And he was willing to do it until God stopped him. That meant we Muslims will take that as meaning as we have to sacrifice our children.
That's a lie. That's a lie, Tanya. That's a lie. No Muslim believe. First of all, the story is that God stopped Abraham from sacrificing his son. Right? It was just to show that it was a test for Abraham. So if the Muslims are aware, and as she just said, that she said that God stopped him. So if God stopped him, how in the world, Tanya, how would Muslims interpret that I have to sacrifice my children too? The story says that God stopped him from sacrificing his son. So it means you don't have to do that. So why would any Muslim say, Abraham sacrificed his son, that means I got to sacrifice mine too, when the story says that Allah stopped him? It was just a test. So if he stopped him from sacrificing his son, how would any Muslim say, that means we got to sacrifice our children too, when we know that Allah stopped him? It was just a test. You see what I'm saying? It's like this is like, it's asinine, the stupidity of the stories that she's telling us. the claims that Muslims believe. I don't know any Muslim. I've never met a Muslim. I've never been taught that. I've never seen any explanation of that in any hadith book, any tafsir, any scholarly work. I've never seen anybody give an explanation of the story of Abraham that Muslims now learn that we are supposed to sacrifice our children to, when the story is clear that Abraham did not sacrifice his son. Allah didn't want him to do that. He stopped him. It was just a test to see if he was willing to be obedient to God. That was really what it was about. It was just to see how obedient Abraham was. It wasn't about the sacrifice. Allah didn't want and doesn't want any human sacrifices of children. So this is a complete garbage claim that she's making here. That Muslims understand that we're supposed. No, we don't, Tanya. No, we don't understand it that way. No, I don't know any Muslim that understands the story of Abraham that we're supposed to sacrifice our children to God. But again, that sounds good, right? That sounds good and sensational to the haters, to the people who hate Islam, to the people who are bigots against Muslims. That sounds great to them. Yeah, see that? I knew it. Bunch of savages. They want to sacrifice their children. See? These are the lies that they make and they tell.
God, to prove ourselves. But then there's like no human rights. And children don't have human rights. But they don't believe in human rights.
Again, now here's where we get into the anti-Muslim bigotry. We don't believe in human rights. Since when, Tanya? Since when? There are books by Muslim scholars written about human rights in Islam. Matter of fact, I don't have the book with me right now, but if you guys go back to some of my earlier videos, I have the book, right? Human Rights in Islam, where it talks about that, goes through the rights that Muslims, non-Muslims have, that all humans have, even according to Islam. Right? So this claim, the Quran talks about there's no compulsion in religion. The Quran talks about how your job is only to deliver the message, and if they turn away, your job was only to deliver it. You're not their guardian. You're not their keeper. Right? The Quran, it respects treaties. The Quran talks about that, you can be at peace with those who are at peace with you, as long as they're not trying to take your land and drive you from your homes, right? These are the verses that I've mentioned. Matter of fact, I mentioned them on yesterday's show. Excuse me, alhamdulillah. Right? That Islam understands that not everybody is a believer. And it also understands that not everybody is hostile to Islam either. Chapter 60, verse 8. As long as they're not trying to fight you for your religion or drive you off of your land and your homes, then be kind and just with those people. Have peace with them. So Islam understands that not everybody has to accept Islam. And that you can be at peace with unbelievers as long as they're at peace with you. So Islam understands these things. But again, these are the tropes that sound good to the haters because they already believe these kind of things, right? They already hate Muslims. They already hate Islam. So yeah, go ahead, Tanya, pour it on. Pour it on. Tell them that, that they don't believe in human rights. These are lies. These are things that cause more bigotry and prejudice towards Muslims by spreading these lies. They don't believe in human rights. Whatever. Come on, continue.
Because it's not from God.
So you guys hit it off.
We hit it off at the beginning. I didn't really like him.
Oh, yeah, see that? Oh, yeah, that's the other part, yeah. So she tells us that she really didn't like the guy. Right? She really didn't like him. So then let her talk some more. You'll see. I'll talk about it. Let her talk some more.
I think he was a little bit autistic. Because the thing, I didn't realize that I married him. He was a stranger. I married him 3 days after meeting him.
Okay, stop right there. She says she married 3 days after meeting him. Why? Why'd you do that? Why would you marry a man 3 days after meeting him? Was it hypergamy? Was it hypergamy that you saw the white boy come from a family with some money? So you wanted to get with that money. Is that it? Because to me, I don't understand that. 3 days after you met him, right? You wanted to get out of your parents' house that bad? You wanted to get out of your parents' house that bad, or did you see the white boy with some money and wanted to step your game up? Step your game up and get some of that money. Is that what it is? Matter of fact, you know what? During the thing, she says that. Actually, she does say that. She does say that because she mentions to the interview, Glenn, about the 3 reasons, the reasons you can marry, for wealth, status, good looks, or whatever. She says she married for status. So actually, yeah, she does admit that that's what the reason she married him for the status. She saw a white boy with some money, right? And he was talking a little bit about Islam or whatever, I guess. I don't know if I don't even know if that had anything to do with it. But she definitely says she admits that she did it for the status.
I know, it sounds crazy. We wrote to each other, we emailed each other for 2 months. We were only 19 when we got married. And I understood that I never felt at home in England, not the way I do in America. And I never picked up on English values, probably because it's too tolerant to bad ideas and cultural abuse. But also just feeling like I'm not allowed because it's against my religion and I'll go to hell if I'm act like them. And so I met John and we got on great, and we were like, we were dreaming about a caliphate, we were dreaming about jihad, it was just all in our imagination. And then I had children, and it was slightly different. And then it wasn't until I had my second child that so John went to prison for 3 years.
Okay, now here's the part where like I said, she raised a suspicion to me about whether her husband might be a CIA agent himself. Listen.
Was charged for hacking into AIPAC's website because he worked for a company called Rackspace, which web hosts a lot of pornography, and AIPAC, their website. So it made him really angry because Islamism makes you angry about everything, right?
Again, another trope, right? Islam makes you angry about everything, right? Pour it on, Tanya. Just pour it on. Keep telling that white audience that how much Islam is evil and bad, and it makes you hate everything. And yeah, pour it on, huh? Right? Pour it on for the audience. They love it. I'm sure they love it.
And you know what I mean. And then so he was actually talking to an undercover CIA agent from Canada.
Okay. So this to me it seems like this may have been his first connection to intelligence in the government, right? He's got in contact somehow. He gets contacted by an undercover CIA agent. My conspiratorial theory is that after this first contact, he never lost contact. That's my theory. And the reason, as I told you at the beginning of the video, why I surmised that, because, first of all, they probably, if that was the case, then after that point, they probably never stopped watching him. They probably didn't stop keeping their eye on him, right? And then as he goes on, it's just interesting that, he has this contact with the CIA agent who gets him to sell bin Laden propaganda, right? So, strangely enough, right? And then when she talks about the story later, how not supposedly, but how they're able to travel. He's traveling to all these countries. He's going to Egypt. He's going here. He's able to get into Syria. He's crossing the border to Turkey and all that stuff like that. He has money to pay human traffickers. He's getting money to do this. I'm like, where's he getting all this? You know what I mean? It's like, seems really weird. And then, of course, he winds up allegedly the second in command in ISIS. Right? White boy winds up second in command in the Middle East of ISIS somehow. So again, I admit this is conspiratorial, but I have good reason to be conspiratorial based on when she said this right here, that he got contact with an undercover CIA agent. My thing is, like I said, I think that he probably never lost contact after that. After that, he may have become, who knows, he may have become an asset, especially when you go to jail too. That's another thing. The government is very well known to take people who they put in jail and turn them into assets for them. That's very well known, whether it comes to the criminal world or, the world of espionage. Many times they will take you and be like, look, we can give you a lighter sentence if you do this for us. Or, hey, you know what? We put you to jail for this. We got something else on you. But look, I got a deal for you. You want to stay out of jail? Okay, look, we need you to go overseas. Need you to infiltrate, right? Or back in the days, hey, we got you, right? We need you to infiltrate the Black Panthers. We need you to infiltrate the Nation of Islam. We need you to become part of Malcolm X's group, right? And it's well documented that that's what happened. When Malcolm X got assassinated, there was an undercover, a New York undercover cop who had infiltrated Malcolm X's close organization and was part of his security team. Unfortunately, Malcolm didn't know, but it came out later. His name was Gene Roberts is his name. Look it up, Gene Roberts. He was actually undercover, and in an interview when Malcolm X got killed, according to his own words, Gene Roberts, he said that he saw, and then again, that makes me wonder, how did he know that these guys were, he said he saw people who were like basically working up the setup to kill Malcolm before it happened. He said a week before. So I'm like, first of all, how did you know they were going to be at the Audubon Theater to case the joint to prepare their setup? How did you know that to catch them doing that? Number one, if you saw that, why didn't you, since you are undercover cop, why didn't you stop them? Why didn't you arrest them? More importantly, why didn't you say, hey, Malcolm, last week I saw these guys. First of all, if I was Malcolm, I would have been like, what do you mean you saw these guys? What were you doing there? How did you know they were going to be there? And how is it that you happened to see them at the time they were a week before I'm about to get killed, set up their assassination attempt? But he says it in the interview that he said he saw it a week ahead of time. Right? There are cases where Fred Hampton, leader of the Black Panthers of Chicago, that they said that there was an undercover agent who was an ex-criminal. The government picked an ex-con and told him, we need you to infiltrate Fred Hampton's Black Panther Party, the Black Panther Party in Chicago. This undercover agent is the one that set up Fred Hampton to get killed. So my point is that it's not unusual, it's not far-fetched that the United States government has used ex-convicts that they have prosecuted and put away and turns them into their agents to do their work for them. So again, I can't prove this beyond a shadow of a doubt, but in my conspiratorial theory, the fact that this guy, according to her, knew all these languages, right? He knew all these languages, that he was able to travel from America to Egypt to Syria to Turkey. He's able to travel I can't travel all around no damn place, right? I don't got the money to be doing that. Where he get the money from? Right? He has the money to travel all these places and he knows all these languages and everything like that. She said he knows the languages real well. That sounds like intelligence training right there. That sounds like an agent, secret agent type of training right there, right? And the fact that he becomes the second in command, he moves up to the ranks. How did he do that? How did they trust him so willingly? You know what I mean? This to me is very awkward, very strange. But let's let her talk some more.
And he didn't realize it. His friends warned him it's a trap, but he didn't listen to me. He didn't listen to his friends. So he
now here she's saying that right, that when the undercover CIA agent contacted him, that everybody was telling him that it's a trap. But for some reason, again, this is strange to me as well, that he should have known that as well if he wasn't really already a part of them. That he kept on going anyway. He kept on with the Bin Laden, selling the Bin Laden propaganda. Because to me it's obvious that right, if somebody contacts me, like right now, wallahi, if somebody was to contact me and say, hey, Mr. Islam, how you doing? I want to talk to you. Look, we want you to sell, Bin Laden propaganda. First of all, as you already know, I don't support Bin Laden or none of his ideology, right? But right there, even if somebody contacted me, that would be a red flag right there. I would refuse outright, right on the spot, right? Because number one, I didn't support and don't support Bin Laden's ideology or ISIS's ideology anyway, right? But right there, that would tell me this is a setup, right? I would know right there, somebody trying to set me up. Somebody trying to set me up to sell Bin Laden propaganda or ISIS propaganda. Right there, I would already know that it was a setup. But for some reason, she said he continued. He had to be smarter than that. And then he's selling it online. Come on, man. You know the government can trace that stuff. You know damn well the government is already at that time had put Bin Laden and ISIS and all that stuff on the banned list of terrorists. So you would have to be a real dummy, which according to her, what she's telling me, he doesn't sound like he's a dummy. He knows how to hack computers and stuff like that. He knows he knows all these different languages. So clearly he sounds like an intelligent guy, right? He sounds like an intelligent guy. So you telling me he wasn't aware that if he was to start selling Bin Laden propaganda that he could be in trouble? Especially as a hacker, he knows that they could trace that back to him and he would be in trouble for that. But she says, you heard it, she says that he ignored everybody and he kept doing it. I wonder why. Was he or perhaps already an undercover asset himself? So therefore, this be part of the plan, this be part of the plot to make it look like he was a radical. You know what I mean? This is real weird to me. You know? So could it be that he was already an asset to them? And this was part of the, the play. Say, let it play out. Go on ahead and act like you were selling stuff online. Later on we'll arrest you, put you in jail or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then this will give you credit. This will give you quote unquote street cred. Or in this case, jihad, terrorist credibility, right? Because the jihadists will look and say, hey, this guy went to jail. So he must be true, huh? He must be the real deal. He went to jail for selling propaganda. So he must be the real deal. Nah, to me, this sounds kind of strange to me. Sounds real strange to me that you would accept. And that everybody's telling you it's a setup and he still went along with it. You know what I mean? I can't rest easy believing that this stuff went on like this and he can't see that this is a setup. Himself, without his wife or his friends telling him, it's obvious it's a setup and he still went through with it. That seems very weird to me. Listen.
We ended up selling, for this website he had unspun, he started doing IT work, programming for them, and selling Osama bin Laden propaganda.
All right, you heard it? See? He started selling for the organization. I guess this is the company or whatever that the undercover CIA agent enticed him into. So for the company, he's selling Bin Laden propaganda. You know what I mean? Like it sounds so clear that this is something. There's more to the story. There's more to this than is revealed.
It was the stupidest thing. I didn't really know about it. And another thing in Islam is that there's 2 times you can lie. You can lie. There's taqiyya, I think it's called. It's when you
okay, here we go with the taqiyya thing again. Here we go.
When you don't want to say you're a Muslim to save your life, and you can lie to your wife. So my husband.
Now again, another, of course, a clear misrepresentation, right? We know that the teaching is not that you lie to your wife whenever you feel like it, whatever you want about. No, right? We understand that this was talking about in the sweet nothings, as they say, that you say to your wife. You say your wife is the most beautiful woman in the world. Now that might not be the truth, right? We know that your wife may not be the most beautiful woman in the world, but it's sweet. They call it sweet nothings. These are little romantic things you might say to your wife. But is that the truth? It may not be the truth, right? Even you might say that to your wife, and you might believe that somebody else is some famous actress or whoever you are familiar with may be beautiful. But you say that. It may not be the truth, but it's something that you say. Right? It's not, and of course the teachings of Islam show that you can read. If she would read the scholars or whatever, would say that they're not. It doesn't mean that you just lie to your wife nilly-willy whenever you please in deceptive manners and underhanded, dirty. You know what I mean? Like, come on, But again, this is the trope. This is how you make Islam evil and demonize it and demonize the Muslims. We know that game. We know that game.
And took advantage of that, and he lied to me a lot because he didn't want me nagging him. And so he didn't tell me everything, but he went to prison for almost 3 years at Seagoville in Texas. It was a detention center. It was low security. During that time, I was able to breathe a little bit. I was allowed.
First time alone.
First time alone, so he wasn't in charge. I didn't have a
family or brothers or
nothing.
Mom or dad.
It's me and my child, my first son, and I started unveiling slowly. Like, I would wear the headscarf, but I put on a colorful one. I took off my veil because he made me wear it. hated wearing the veil. You cannot breathe under the veil. It's like wearing.
All right, so again, you hear, right? You hear this is the part where we start to now discredit her supposed radicalism. According to her own words right there. This is when she's with her husband. Now he's in jail, but she's with him. She's saying that when he was gone, now she says she's started unveiling. She takes off the veil, right? She hated it. She hated it, but I thought you were radicalized by your husband though. So if you were radicalized, why you're telling us that you hated it though? So if those are your true feelings, then you were never really radicalized then, right? Because right there you said you hated it. You start taking it off. Right? When your husband is not there, you taking stuff off now. And you said you hated it. So I'm trying to figure out if that's the case, then when were you ever radicalized, Tanya? Sounds like you were never really radicalized. Sounds like you were just living with your husband because the white boy had money. That's what it sounds like to me. Sounds like you didn't believe none of that stuff. You wasn't radicalized. You were just with the white boy who had the money and could take care of you. But while that was going on, you hated all that stuff, right? You hated that he was trying to be the Muslim husband, the supposed Muslim husband. You hated that you had to wear the veil and all that stuff like that. So that means your true feelings were not, you didn't believe in none of that stuff. So you weren't really radicalized at all. So your story to the people is a lie. Glenn Beck, Tania, Joya, it sounds like you weren't radicalized at all. At no point were you ever radicalized, because it's apparent that you really were just going along with your husband just to go along because the white boy had the money to take care of you. But you didn't really believe in this stuff, so you were really never radicalized. Yet this is how they're promoting her to the world, everybody. This is how they do these people. They take these ignorant people who really don't really know Islam. They re-educate them themselves with the hatred against Islam, with the tropes against Islam and Muslims, with all the talking points about Muhammad being a pedophile, Allah is an evil God, Islam is enslavement and this and that, right? They retrain them. They teach that to them themselves, and then they say, "Okay, here you go. Now go out in the world, and we'll give you the credit. We'll pump you up. We'll make sure that you're on CNN and Fox News and Glenn Beck, and we'll make sure to put you out as if you're an expert on Islam. You'll do great. Go on ahead now." That's what it sounds like to me, that this is what they do to these people. They give them their own training because they don't know about Islam. She's clear she don't know what the hell she's talking about when it comes to Islam. So they retrain them, they reprogram them with the anti-Islamic talking points, and they say, "Here, go out in the world now. We'll make you famous. We'll make you famous. Go on ahead and add to the list of other anti-Islamists that are promoting bigotry and hatred and demonization of Islam and Muslims. Go on ahead, Tanya. You'll be fine with all the rest of them. With all the rest of them, go on ahead. And you'll have book deals, and you'll be on TV, and you'll get paid for speaking engagements. And it's going to be a great, wonderful thing as we spread hatred and bigotry against Islam and Muslims."
Wearing a sack over your head, and I tell every man who says that it's righteous and everything, I'm like, put a bag over your head, and you'll know what it feels like. But then they say, "Oh, our mothers don't say it feels like that. Their mothers are lying." Because it does feel like, especially when you're pregnant and it's hard to breathe, and they're always making us pregnant, and they treat us like baby making machines just so that they can subdue us. Because I had this problem that I always wanted to accept my independence and say, like, I want.
Did you hear? Did you hear? She said, "I always had this feeling that I wanted to have my own independence." Listen.
A job, and I don't want to just be at home, and I want to do what other 20-year-olds do.
But you claim you were radicalized though, Tanya. You're on this show because you supposedly got radicalized, but you said you always felt like you wanted to be out there doing what the other people are doing. So where did you get radicalized? How are you on this show as the supposed expert, as a former radicalized person, when you're telling us that you've obviously never felt that way? She told on herself, see? She told on herself. You heard her. She said, "I always felt like I wanted to be out there independent on my own, doing what other 20-year-olds and such are doing." Always felt that way. You heard it. I always felt that way. But if you always felt that way, when did you get radicalized then, Tanya? Sounds like you were, again, just going along with your white boy husband because he had the money to take care of you. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like to me. Doesn't sound like you were ever radicalized at all, because these are your personal feelings. She's telling us her personal feelings, everyone. She's exposing to her that she always felt that way. Therefore, if you always felt that way, when were you actually radicalized? You see, brothers and sisters, it sounds like she was never radicalized at all, obviously. If you always felt that way, then you could have never been radicalized then. You were always in opposition, right, to what your husband was telling you about the jihad and all this nonsense. Right? And when he wasn't there, you started taking stuff off. You started, right? You heard her. When he was in jail, I had time to breathe. Oh, but then, so where'd you get radicalized at then? Right? Where were you radicalized then? Because obviously you weren't, right? When your husband's gone, you're like, oh, good, I can do what I want to do now. I can take stuff off now. I don't got to be wearing this and that. If you were really radicalized, you would have held true to the thing and said, well, my husband's in jail, but I'm going to keep wearing the veil because I believe in it. It's the Sharia. It's the Sharia law. I'm going to keep wearing the veil. Right? But if you felt that you wanted to take it off, then that appears to me that you weren't really radicalized ever, because your true feelings is that you know what I mean? You hate it, as you said. So this doesn't sound like somebody who was actually radicalized at all to me.
In my 20s time, he thought that was too feminist and too American. So while he was in prison, I got to have some freedom, and he came back, and the night is crazy, because I always say I was married to John for 10 years. The best years of my marriage was while he was in prison and while he was on probation for 3.
All right, y'all heard that, right? So once again, the best time is the marriage is when he's in jail. Obviously, when he's not with her. When he was in jail, that was the best time of the marriage. And when he's on probation, she said, because when he's on probation, he's still under control of the authorities. So that was the best time, she said. That was the best time of their relationship, of their marriage. When he wasn't, the best time was when he wasn't with her, when she had her freedom to do what she wanted to do. Once again, if that's the case, how were you ever radicalized then? How were you radicalized if you obviously didn't care for this guy, you didn't love him? The best time of your marriage is when he's not around, right? The best time of your marriage is when he's not around. So therefore, if a woman feels like this, brothers and sisters, believe me, she ain't going to be taking anything you teach her. So if that's the way she really felt about him, that means when he was talking all this jihad and caliphate and all that stuff like that, and so-called terrorism stuff like that, that means she wasn't taking none of that. Because when a woman doesn't respect you and have any feelings for you, what you say to her means nothing. You can't influence your wife or your girlfriend or whoever if she doesn't believe in you. If she hates your guts. If she can't wait till you're not around her. If you have a woman like that, you can't teach her anything, because she doesn't care what you got to say. Right? If a woman expresses that, hey man, the best times is when my husband is not around, when he's not here, when he's gone, when he was in jail. Well, that means she pretty much hates your guts, bro. And you have no influence over her whatsoever. She ain't gonna take what you teach her. So again, another conflict in her story. How is it that he radicalized you, Tanya, if you hate the man's guts? I'm not a psychologist, but I know enough from life experiences, from observation of other people's relationships and things like that. We know enough to know that if a woman hates your guts, if she's sick of you, if she can't stand you when you're around her, you cannot teach her anything. You won't be able to influence her anywhere because she can't stand you. So if you do say stuff to her, it'll go in one ear and right out the other. She won't take to heart or take serious anything you have to say to her or teach her. So again, she's telling on herself and she doesn't know it. She's exposing and poking the holes in her own story, but she doesn't realize it. You see? So if the best times, again, is when he wasn't there, or when he's under probation, still under control of the authorities, if that's the best time of your relationship, then I ask again, how were you radicalized? It's clear that you were not radicalized at all. You were just being with him because he had the money, right? Because he was the white boy with the money. But when it came to what he was telling you and teaching you, you obviously didn't believe in it. By your own words, you hated wearing the veil and all the stuff like that. You hated it. Couldn't wait to take it off when he went to jail. The best time was when he was away from you, locked up in jail. That was the best times. You see, everybody? You see what I'm saying? All right?
3 years. Because I had a foot over him on his neck for the first time. It was before, it was the other way around. And so if he stepped out of line, he knew I would report him to his probation officer, who I got along with really well. It really helped having a relationship with the FBI.
Bam, stop right there. You heard her? It really helped. They had a relationship with the FBI. That's interesting. Right? Who, if after you go to jail, has an ongoing relationship with the FBI? And why? And even then, and after you go to jail, why does the FBI still have a good relationship with you? Right? Usually after you go to jail, that's it. They done with you. Other than to keep an eye on you to make sure you're not getting involved in no other criminal activity. Right? So how is it that you have a relationship with the FBI when your husband's a criminal at that? Y'all get where I'm going? So this again ties into my conspiracy theory. How is it that you have a relationship with the FBI after you go? Your husband's a criminal. What are they in relationship with you for? Right? Especially to the point where they're having a relationship with his wife. Right? Why would they be having a relationship with you? Especially on probation. Probation is not, probation is just basically, you check in with your probation officer, right? You report to them, make sure that you're staying out of trouble, make sure you're not, involved in any criminal activity or whatever. That's pretty much the extent that probation goes to. They don't be calling you to check and see how you're doing. Hey, you eating food? Hey, we just calling to make sure that you guys are, you're all right. Y'all got food? Y'all okay? Huh? You know what I mean? Like, what is this? What relationship do you have with them? But again, like I said, these to me are little exposés that are being given out unknowingly. See, she's just talking, but unknowingly, it's exposing stuff. Relationship, remember, first contact, undercover CIA agent. Gets you to sell Bin Laden propaganda. Number one. Number two, he goes to jail, right? Supposedly. And then after, goes to jail. And then after jail, to probation, you have a relationship with the FBI. How? For what? What kind of relationship? And by the way, when you go to jail, after you get out of jail, the people, like the agency itself doesn't do your probation. You would be assigned a probation officer. And the probation officer, whose job is just to make sure that you're staying in line and that you're reporting in, they keep track of you. The actual agency itself doesn't keep track of you no more. Right? That's what the probation officer's for. And the probation officer is not really like is not an FBI agent. It would be a federal probation officer that would be, who you would have to report to. Now you don't have to you don't report, you're not reporting to the FBI directly. Right? You would be reporting to your assigned probation officer, not the FBI itself. Just like if you committed a regular crime, right? Like a city crime or something, right? You would go to jail. The police handle you, put you in jail, whatever. Once you get out of jail, then you are put on probation by the local state probation officer. You don't have to keep in contact with the police department itself, right? A probation officer will now be in charge of you. You see what I'm saying? You don't keep in contact with the police, the local police department after you've been arrested and went to jail and served your time. No, now the charge is the probation officer, the state probation officer or the local county probation officer. Now they're your contact person, and it's just to make sure you're staying out of trouble. They're not worried about, so much if you got, are you eating dinner every night and, hey, let's have a relationship. Let's talk how the kids doing. We're just calling to see how the kids are doing. No, and no. Right? No, their job is to keep it professional. We just making sure you staying out of trouble until your probation time is up. But she's saying they had a relationship with the FBI. Well, why, Tanya? Why was the FBI still talking to y'all if he had already went to jail and served his time? What was it that kept them, kept them connected? What was it that kept this relationship going? See, that's what I want to know. That's what raises a red flag for me.
For that duration, because they could also see the control John had over me, and they could see me trying to fight it.
Again, how are they that involved in your lives to see that? And why are they still involved to see that? Because again, after you finish your time, you're supposed to be assigned a probation officer. In this case, it would be right. Obviously, this appears that this would have been a federal case if the FBI had got involved when he got arrested from selling the bin Laden stuff, and the CIA agent was there, right? So that would have been a federal case. You would have went to federal prison, served your time, whatever, right? You get out. As far as I know, right, you would be assigned a federal probation officer, but not the FBI itself. After that, the FBI is removed from the situation now because they already did their job. They already arrested you. They put you away. You got convicted. Now their job is done. Now they move on and keep going on with their work, looking for other criminals and stuff like that, right? And so now, like I said, it would just be the federal probation officer that would be in charge of looking over you to make sure, again, that you're staying, to the extent that you're just staying out of trouble. But what she's saying is that the FBI was still in contact with them. How, Tanya? Especially, and then again, this clearly was obviously more intimate of a relationship if they were able to allegedly see that she was being manipulated, and they see how her husband's treating her. How are they that involved, Tanya? How are they that involved with a criminal, right? With a convicted criminal that they still checking in, and they're so. The relationship is such that they are able to see that he's manipulating you and treating you. How are they that involved in you and his life? You see, to me, brothers and sisters, that tells me that he may have been more than what we're told he is or was. See? He may have been more than what we are told that he was. The fact that, again, I'm just going by what she says, and I'm trying to put the pieces together. Right? I'm just trying to put the pieces together. I'm just asking questions. How was the FBI that involved to the extent that they could see and they were concerned that he was manipulating you? How does that happen, especially after he already went to jail and served his time? How are they still, how y'all still having a relationship? What was the purpose to continue the relationship? Again, and in the FBI directly rather than just a probation officer. You know what I'm saying? So this all seems questionable to me, in addition to her false information and lies about Islam.
So, they were concerned. They understood there was some manipulation. There's manipulation involved, and they were caring. I don't care what anyone says about the FBI, but they saved my life. This government saved my life.
All right, now see what I'm saying? See that sounds kind of weird. They're concerned. How are they concerned? Not only that, but concerned to what extent? Because if he was just selling stuff online, propaganda online, again, how are they that concerned about a guy who was selling stuff online, propaganda online? How are they that concerned for you? You know what I mean? Because at this point, it appears that he wasn't doing anything violent. He was just promoting, for the undercover CIA agent. He was promoting the bin Laden propaganda. So how are they that concerned for you? Because it doesn't appear that he was being violent towards you or physically abusive or anything like that, where you might say, okay, well, an officer might be concerned and he might look out because he see, but it appears it was just that. Plus the fact that she said, you heard it earlier, she said that it was obviously so minor that he was sent to a detention center, which was low security. So they didn't really see him as much of a problem. So again, I'm just asking questions. I'm just trying to put two and two together to see how this is coming together here. You see what I'm saying? And they were really caring. Since when does the FBI do that for the criminals of the wives of criminals? How are they caring for you and all that stuff like that? Again, especially after he had already went to jail. Again, usually after you serve your time, a person, that's it. That's it. You're done. They unless they think that you're still up to something, and they might keep it. But then, of course, they're going to spy on you. They're not going to really get involved and be calling and checking on your wife and all kind of stuff like that. They'll just keep a surveillance upon you to see what you're up to next. But they won't, blow their cover by calling your wife and say, hey, how are you, Tanya? How you doing? Tanya, we're really concerned about you. We see that he's manipulating you, but we're really caring. You and the kids all right? Y'all need some food? You want the FBI to send you a box of food? You know what I'm saying? You want the FBI to send you a box of food? So something's more to it. Again, and the fact, like I said, I'm going to keep repeating it. The fact that, according to the story, he went overseas and becomes the second in highest in charge in ISIS. That's really interesting that a white guy could do that. That a white guy could go overseas and he becomes the second in charge of ISIS. That's really odd that happened. That could happen.
And I owe them my loyalty and my love and my life, and so do my children. And I remind them of that every day, because we would be in those camps in Syria right now, or we would be dead.
And even this part right here that she's talking about here, what she's saying here is not true, because in the story she says that her husband is the one who got her out of Syria, not the FBI. So I don't know what all this, this is pandering, this is brown nosing, this is ass kissing right here, what she's doing right here. Because I'm going to show you. During the interview, she says that her husband is the one who got her out of Syria. He took her and the kids and they ran to the border, and they had they were getting shot at by the Syrian guards and all this kind of stuff like that. And he got her to safety, or at least a safe place. He paid a human trafficker to get her out of the border and take her to Turkey. So I don't know what she's talking about. The FBI saved her. You admit that your own husband was the one that got you out of Syria. Matter of fact, let me take you to that part right now so you can see what I'm saying. Let me take you to the part where she says that it was her husband who got her out of Syria. Right? Let's see. That was at minute 102 and 110. Let's see. Not minute, excuse me, hour. Hour. It was at hour 102. Let's see, where is that? All right, let's start it about right here. She's going to tell you that her husband is the one who got her out of Syria. Well, listen.
Made it back to America, de-radicalized, and not had to face prison or be in those camps or be dead.
But there was a chance you were going to be dead trying to get out.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got out.
I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't prepared. It was entering Syria. So, first, it's a long story how we got there. We were never planning to go to Turkey, but we needed finances to leave Egypt. But the only person we could get money from was his dad. And his dad was like, no way, I'm not sending you to Sudan. That's a crazy idea. I didn't want to go to Sudan, it's too hot. And the people are lazy because it's hot. And then John was like, Philippines. And I was like, the Philippines is fine. But I looked at pictures and I was like, I don't want to live on stilts with snakes underneath. And I was like...
So let's listen to this part right here, which again raises more suspicion. So basically, I guess they're getting money from his father, and they're talking. You hear her? They're talking about places they can go, other places they can go besides Syria, right? To get out of there. So the Philippines, but you heard that she doesn't like that. Sudan, right? To go to some other place. So her husband is willing to get her out of there. So again, if that's the case, how is she? And she wants to leave too, by the way. So how is she the first lady of ISIS if she didn't even want to be there, and he got her out of there before stuff even happened? Right? So her husband was willing to get her, say, okay, you want to leave, you want to get out of here? Okay, I'm going to help you get out of here. So he helps her get out of there. So shouldn't you be thanking your husband? Even if you don't like him, that at least he was willing to accept that you didn't want to be there, and he's letting you get out of there. Right? So rather than the FBI, your husband is the one who got you out of there, according to what you're saying. Right? He's helping, he's deciding, he's willing to let you go. He's willing to let you go to the Philippines or Sudan, but he's willing to let you go himself. Say, okay, you want to go? Well, come on. We can get you to Syria. We can get you to Sudan. Okay, you don't like Sudan. It's too hot. You say, okay, well, we can get you to the Philippines. All right, I don't like the Philippines because their houses are built on stilts. Okay, but he's obviously willing to let you go. And obviously you don't want to be there. So if you don't want to be there, once again, how are you this de-radicalized person? Are you guys listening? From her own story, it appears that she never wanted any parts of this. So that if you never wanted any parts of what your husband was getting into, how are you the first lady of ISIS when you don't even want to be with, you're not even, agreeing to be part of ISIS, or even agreeing to be with your husband, or to even go to Syria, or to even stay in Syria? How are you the first lady of ISIS? How are you this once upon a time radicalized ISIS wife, when you clearly, from your story, from the beginning, from the start, you never really were accepting of any of this stuff? So you see, this is how they prop these people up, and then again give them to the world as if they're experts on Islam and radicalism and all that. Meanwhile, she's telling you maybe she's not paying attention to what she's saying, but to me is destroying her own credibility. She's destroying her own story. She obviously should not be giving speeches and lectures and doing book tours or whatever, because she obviously was never radicalized in the first place. Right? It sounds like, from her own words, she always hated all this stuff. She hated the hijab. She hated covering. She hated wearing the veil. Right? So, if you always felt that way, again, how were you this radicalized person? And how is it that they're giving you credit to go around and do speeches and lectures and de-radicalize people when you were never radicalized in the first place, based upon what your story is? Right? Let's listen some more.
I want a real home, and so I wanted to go to Greece, but then John's parents were
See, she wanted to go to Greece. So basically, again, how are you the first lady of ISIS when you don't even want to? You want to go to all these other places, right? How are you the first lady when you don't even accept none of this stuff? You're not even accepting of any of this. So how are you the first lady of ISIS? To me, the first lady of ISIS would be a woman who agrees with that stuff. She goes there and she wants to be there. She wants to live with them. She wants to, accept what her husband is doing. And she agrees that she backs her husband, whatever he's doing, whatever ISIS is doing, whatever stuff they're doing. She's in full agreement with it. She accepts it. She accepts that her husband is the commander, and she's proud that he's there. That, to me, would be the definition of a first lady of ISIS. Not some girl who always felt that Islam was evil and bad. Not some woman who always hated the hijab and it's too hot and I can't do this and that and Muhammad is a pedophile and Islam is anti-Semitic. If you always felt this way, then how were you radicalized? If you always felt these feelings, then how are you the first lady of ISIS? Clearly, you're not the first lady of ISIS, because you didn't agree with the stuff from before y'all even went there. And again, she's telling on herself, everybody. I don't have to misrepresent her. You heard her say throughout the interview, I didn't like this and I didn't like the hijab and then I really didn't like my husband. I never really liked him. I'm glad when he was gone, when he was in jail. Right? You hear her. You hear her talking like this. And right now, I want to go to here. I want to go to Greece. Right? I want to get out of here. I don't want to stay here in Syria. I want to go to Greece or Sudan or whatever. Or those were places that were suggested. But me, I really want to go to Greece. I want to go with the Europeans, right? I want to go live in Greece with the Europeans. But so then again, if that's the case, how are you the first lady of ISIS then, right? How are you the first lady of ISIS when you don't even, you know what I'm saying? It just, again, it's all coming out as you hear. Let's listen to more.
Like, no, you can't go to Greece with a hijab. They're going to think you're a refugee or a gypsy and they're not going to treat you right. I was like, well, I'm happy to take my hijab off.
Okay, there you go again. There you go again, right? If you were so radicalized, then why are you so willing to radicalize an alleged radicalized person, right? Especially if she's a Muslim woman, that's one of the things that she would be radicalized about, right? She's going to be strong and, no, I will never take my hijab off. I'll never take it off, right? Because I'm the radicalized Muslim. I'll never take my hijab off, right? That's the image of the radical from their point of view, right? So if you're so radicalized, again, notice this is all before she even comes to America and supposedly gets de-radicalized. To me, it sounds like you can't wait to take it off. You can't wait to get to Syria, wait to get to Greece or to Europe or whatever. You can't wait. You heard her. I'll take it off. I have no problem. She's ready to take it off. So again, how are you radical? At what point were you radicalized then? And why did you supposedly need to be de-radicalized when already you're telling us right there, before you even get to escape and get out of Syria, you're telling your family or whoever, your husband's father or whatever, that, oh yeah, I don't mind. I'll go to Greece. I'll take it off. I don't mind taking it off. I'll take off the hijab. Right, I'm ready. But then again, if that's how you feel, where's the radicalization at then? Right? Where's the so-called fundamentalist, extremist outlook at then? Because, right, if I suppose that an extremist would never want to take it off. Right? An extremist would say, no, I'm not taking it off. I'm always going to wear it. I don't care because I'm the Muslim radical. Ah! Right? But you heard her. You saw her. She said it very enthusiastically. Very enthusiastically. Oh, I'll take it off if I can go to Greece. Yeah, I'll take it off. I don't mind. I don't mind taking it off. Oh, but you're a radical though. But you're a radical. You were radicalized, and you supposedly needed to be de-radicalized. Sounds like you already felt like, you know, like, you know what I mean? It already sounds like you're not radicalized at all. Listen to some more.
But John wouldn't allow it. Seriously, I did not want to wear the hijab for so many years, and I was locked in my house.
Okay, bam. You heard her? Did you hear her? Did you hear that? For so many years, I didn't want to wear the hijab. Then again, Tanya, if for so many years you didn't want to wear it, and you were locked in your house, and you didn't want to wear it, when were you radicalized, ma'am? When the hell were you ever radicalized then, ma'am? If you heard it, everybody. She just told on herself again. For so many years, I didn't want to wear it. But I was locked in my house. John, that means you were living and doing something you didn't like and you didn't want. If that is the case, which apparently it is, when were you ever radicalized, ma'am? At the show. Remember when the show began, right? Remember when the interview began, Mr. Glenn Beck said that she had been radicalized. She had been radicalized, and they wanted their kids to be, she wanted to raise jihad kids, and her and her husbands were partners in terror. Where, Glenn Beck, where? What I'm hearing is a woman who basically was just going along with the white boy with the money. That's all I'm hearing, to be honest with you. All I'm hearing is a girl from another country who found a white boy in America with some money, figures, hey, he's taking care of stuff, he got that money, he's caught up on this Islam stuff. I'll go along with it. I don't like it, but I'll go along with it because hell, he got that money, right? And he's a white boy. By the way, I'm gonna show you that factors in as well. Watch, I'm gonna show you that factors in too. But basically, what she's saying. Basically, sounds like she was never radicalized. She was just going along to get along because the man had the money. And he was a white boy. And she tolerated his talking about Islam. But her herself, she was not his partner in terrorism, Glenn Beck. She wasn't his radicalized partner. She wasn't his radical terror partner. Because again, as you heard her, she obviously never believed in this stuff or accepted it. You heard her. Let me play it again for y'all. Just in case you missed it, let me play it again. Listen to her own words.
Entering Syria, so like first, it's a long story how we got there. We were never planning to go to Turkey, but we needed finances to leave Egypt. But the only person we could get money from was his dad. And his dad was like, no way, I'm not sending you to Sudan. That's a crazy idea. I didn't want to go to Sudan, it's too hot. And the people are lazy because it's hot. And then John was like, Philippines. And I was like, the Philippines is fine. But I looked at pictures and I was like, I don't want to live on stilts with like snakes underneath. And I was like, I want a real home. And so I wanted to go to Greece. But then John's parents were like, no, you can't go to Greece with a hijab. They're going to think you're a refugee or a gypsy and they're not going to treat you right. I was like, well, I'm happy to take my hijab off. But John wouldn't allow it. Seriously, I did not want to wear the hijab for so many years, and I was locked in my house because of that.
So you heard her, right? You heard her. I wanted to take it. I hated wearing the hijab for so many years. I hated wearing the hijab for so many years. So you were already anti-Islamic already. You were just, like many gold diggers will put up with whatever, like while the man got the money, right? While the man got the money, you'll put up with whatever, as long as that money's good, right? Or he has some connection to money. Like in this case, she said his dad is the one with the money. His dad is a doctor. They got that good money. So whatever, whether the man himself got the money or he has access to cash, a lot of women, a lot of simple-minded women will put up with whatever. So that's what it sounds like she was. She was never radicalized. She was never really practicing no Islam wholeheartedly. She was just doing whatever because her white boy husband was the one saying all this stuff like that. But her true feelings, as you heard, I never wanted to wear it for so long. You heard her. So again, I asked the question, Miss Joya, when were you ever really radicalized then if you felt like this whole time before y'all even went to Syria? And then when you are there, let's go to Greece. Oh, that you shouldn't go there because they'll treat. Oh, I'm very happy to take the hijab off. Oh, okay, Miss Radicalized. Miss Radicalized is so quick to be willing to take the hijab off. Come on, man.
And so Turkey was the compromise. So we were in Turkey, Istanbul. I was so happy. I was like, oh, it's clean. It's not filthy like Egypt, and it's like more like Europe. And I was so happy. But he was like, it's too expensive, and I'm not going to learn Turkish. We got to go to the eastern side where they speak Arabic. And I was like, okay, fair enough. How bad can it be? I've never been there. I went there. I was horrified. It was full of Syrian refugees, and I was really panicking and hormonal from being pregnant, and I was freaking out every moment. And he was like, we were waiting for money to be transferred, and the money didn't come, and then we ended up getting on a bus because we were sleeping on the streets because we couldn't get a hotel room. All the hotels, the Syrians were given priority over hotel rooms. So the only place we could stay that night in Gaziantep was a Syrian hostel, and I refused to stay there because I was like, my kids and I are allergic to bed bugs, like really badly.
All right, this is just her talking about her experiences at the hotels and all that stuff like that. So let's go ahead and jump ahead to, let's see here. We're going to jump ahead to point marker 1 hour and 9 minutes. Let's jump to that. Okay, we're going to jump ahead because, like I said, this part she's just talking about how bad it was and dirty and we couldn't get the hotel and, So let's get to so we're going to jump ahead to marker 1 hour and 9 minutes about right here. Let's start a little bit ahead to give you some context.
This opened my mind a lot, like just hearing their arguments and the debates, and feeling more of an affiliation to them than I did with the Muslims. The Muslims were so nihilistic, and the Muslims didn't care about things like, I cared about saving the bees. I cared about, pollution and things, and for them, they're like, it's the end of the world. Jesus will take care of it. God will take care of it. Whatever.
Okay, now right there, that exposed another liar. First of all, we Muslims don't believe Jesus will take care of anything because he's not God. So right there, you exposed your ignorance right there, Tania, Joya. We don't believe you. We Muslims don't say, oh, Jesus is going to take care of it. We don't believe that. Where the hell did you get that from, that Muslims believe Jesus is going to take care of anything? We don't believe Jesus is going to take care of anything. So I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, Jesus will take care of the world and the pollution. Come on, man. You see? And then again, this is part of the demonization of Islam. You see, of Muslims. Because you heard what she said. She said, when she used to get online and do these debates or whatever the case may be, the Muslims didn't care. Supposedly, the Muslims didn't care about pollution and the earth. Right? The Muslims, according to her, don't worry about it. Jesus is going to take care of it. Yeah. I don't know any Muslim that says Jesus is going to take care of anything, because they should know that obviously Allah is the one that takes care. But even then, we don't have that attitude either. That Muslims don't care about the pollution and the bees and the earth. Muslims don't care about that. Cut it out. Stop trying to demonize the Muslims so much. Right? There are Muslims involved in, being concerned about pollution and animals. And of course, we have hadiths that talk about this stuff too. Right? There are hadiths and all kind of things in the Quran that talk about the earth, and hadiths, the teachings of Muhammad, that talk about the earth and being kind to animals, and how the earth will one day, on the day of judgment, it's gonna testify against humanity for the stuff that they did to the earth. You know what I mean? So the claim that Muslims don't care about these things is just to demonize it. Again, this is just propaganda to make Muslims seem like the lowest, barbaric, savage people there is. That we don't care about our families and our kids, and we don't care about pollution and the earth, and she was concerned about the bees, and the Muslims were like, don't worry about it, Jesus is going to take care of it, and all that kind of nonsense, right? So this is just further demonizing us, further demonizing the Muslims to make it seem like we just don't really give a damn about nothing. That's basically what she's saying, right? The Muslims don't really just give a damn about nothing. They just want blood for Allah. That's what she's basically saying. The Muslims don't care about anything. They don't care about their own children. They don't care about their families. They don't care about the earth and pollution. Allah, Jesus, or Allah is going to take care of it. It's the end of the world. That's basically what it is. To just further demonize Muslims further in the minds of these bigots. Right? That's basically what it amounts to. Okay. Let's see. I want to jump ahead to 110. All right, so 110, I think that's where she talks about how her husband got her out of Syria to Turkey again, because somehow they wind up back in Syria again, and then he gets her out. So again, she obviously never wanted to stay in Syria to be part of ISIS at all. So again, why they gave her the title First Lady of ISIS is amazing to me. Right? So let's listen to more.
And I was like, well,
By the way, hold on, let me stop and check. I haven't checked on you guys in a moment. Make sure everything's still working right. Yes, exactly. All right, brother Sammy, take care. Take care. Yeah, brother Nigel. Yeah, it's you that got me to do this topic. Remember, I told you on Twitter that it was this topic. Once you sent me that video, that I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and do this topic. So yeah, thanks to you, bro. All right, so let's continue. What I said I wanted to jump. Oh yeah, we're gonna at the 1 hour 10-minute marker. There's more, but I'm gonna let it play. And let me see. Wait, 1 hour 110. Let's see.
We can help, with these problems, but we just had different priorities altogether. Because at the end of the day, their goal was to die to live an eternal life in paradise. Because to them, and my ex-husband, this life is a dream. It's not real. And then, so the hadith...
And again, this is another false trope, that the Muslims don't care about this life or whatever. Look, the Quran says very clearly that Allah can give us the good, and we can have the good in this life and in the hereafter. So the Muslim takes a more balanced approach to life, right? We're not completely materialistic, where it's all about what we can get right now. And we're not completely, apocalyptic, where it's all about, the end of days and the end of the earth and the afterlife. We live a balanced life. We live and enjoy what Allah has given us here, and we also look forward to the afterlife, right? We know that we have a life to live here, and we want to enjoy it and live it well with our families and live life good. And at the same time, we look forward to the future, to the hereafter, where after... right, in the afterlife, you want to live well there also. But it's not just about that. It's about living good here on earth while we're here, and making the best of it while you're here, and also then looking on to a good afterlife as well. So, again, the misinformation is clearly exposed on her part.
Say when you go to paradise, you look back at this world and it's just like a dream. Mm-hmm. Dreams are insignificant. Mm-hmm. And so that's how lightly they take this world, and that's how much they depreciate life. They don't value human life.
See, again, now right there, that's a dangerous characterization. And that's the kind of stuff that causes people to go in mosque and murder Muslims without impunity. And murder Muslim kids and children and people and elderly and all that kind of stuff right there. because then the haters hear that it's a lie, but they don't know. They listen. They believe these people because again, she's put up as some kind of credible person because she supposedly was the first lady of ISIS. So they say, well, look, she got out, and she says that these people don't appreciate life. Well, you know what? Good. Then I don't appreciate theirs. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to a mosque and I'm gonna shoot a bunch of Muslims. Right? I don't know. Good. If they don't appreciate life, well, then I don't appreciate them either. I'm gonna go in a mosque and murder all of them. And that's what happened at the Christchurch shooting. That's what happened at all the other various shootings. Even the one that happened years ago where the guy went into a Sikh temple. He thought it was a Muslim. He thought it was a mosque. But he went into the Sikh temple thinking that it was Muslims, and he started to just shoot off a bunch of rounds, killing people. Right? Because they're hearing this propaganda. Their brains are constantly being filled with this propaganda that justifies their bigotry. What you're doing, Tanya, is a dangerous thing. You claim that you're for freedom and justice and human rights. Yet here you are demonizing Muslims, which justifies the bigotry, the prejudice, the hatred of these haters. And then they take what you say or what the other people, Robert Spencers and the David Woods and the various others out there, take what they say. And you're the one, and it's funny, this is ironic too. This is ironic because she's supposed to be against radicalization. Well, I guess it's okay if you're radicalizing a bunch of white bigots, huh? Right? It's funny because what she's saying is this is the kind of stuff that is used to radicalize the white racist killers that go in mosques and shoot Muslims, that attack Muslim women on the street, that attack old Muslim men who go to Fajr in the morning or coming home from Isha at night. This is the kind of rhetoric that these people use to justify what they do. So isn't that ironic that she's supposedly against radicalization, but here she is helping to radicalize these white racist bigots out here in the real world? So isn't that interesting, Tanya, that you're helping to radicalize, you're against radicalizing Muslims, which I would agree with. I'm against that too. But on the other hand, you're willing to speak all these bigotries and lies to demonize Muslims, thereby radicalizing the white racist bigots and killers that want to harm Muslims. How ironic. How ironic is that? Right? How ironic is that?
Not for their families, not for their children. And that's why it's so poisonous.
Again, that's why her lie is so dangerous. Because she's basically putting it that Muslims don't care. Right? You heard her. They don't care about their kids, their children. So, right? You see what I'm saying? She's basically saying the Muslims don't care about life at all. Not even the life of their own kids and their own children, which is a lie. Which is a complete and fabricated lie.
So when you came across the border to leave Syria, how?
Okay, I want y'all to listen to this part right here, because now he's talking about when she went across the border to leave Syria. Now listen to who she says got her out. It wasn't the FBI who got her out. So I don't know why, like I said, when you saw earlier, when she's talking about, oh, she owes her life to the FBI. Her husband is the one who got her out of Syria, not the FBI. He got her out. So how you claiming the FBI, you owe your life to the FBI and the FBI saved you and all that, when it was your husband who agreed to get you out of there? He obviously listened to your pleas that you didn't want to be there or stay there, so he got you out. The FBI didn't send a SWAT team in or a rescue, the Navy SEAL team to get you out of there. Your own husband took you to the border and got you out of Syria safely. But listen herself.
How did you get back across?
So that was really rough. I was five and a half months pregnant. So I'd waited 3 weeks until the fighting had stopped so that the borders would be open for me to cross. And the Syrians were like, Malish. I would say, like, well, that's the Egyptian. They're like, this is no problem, it's easy. I thought, I was under the impression it would be as easy to leave as it was to get in, because the Turkish border guards didn't care. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't. The Syrian guards were on these posts shooting at us.
It's not hot.
We were running. I was so scared. My kids were frightened. We had to run through barbed wire. We had to get onto a human trafficking truck. John paid the human trafficker.
You heard that? You heard that? Her husband John paid. So he's helping you get out. So once again, how are you the first lady of Syria? You don't want to be there. You want to get out. And your husband, the radical, he's still willing to help you get out. You heard it. She said her husband paid. Her husband was paying for the human traffickers and all that to help get her out of there. So, but she said she made it sound like the FBI was the one that rescued her. She made it sound like the FBI was the one that got her out of there. But she heard it right here. She just told on herself. Her husband is the one who paid to get her out of there, ma'am. Right? She just said it. Her husband is the one who paid the human traffickers and all that to get her out of there, not the FBI. Sounds like the FBI didn't have much to do with your rescue for you to get. Your own husband got you out of there. Listen some more.
He crossed the border with us to Turkey. He could have come with us, but he wouldn't. He said, I'm not going to. I begged him on my hands and knees while pregnant, crying, please take me to the airport, because I'd never been alone in my life.
He couldn't go with you, Tanya. He had to finish the mission for the CIA. He knew he had to finish his mission for the FBI and the CIA. So he had to let you go because he knew he had to finish his mission.
I said, please take me to the airport. And he said, no, because you've reported me to the FBI and they're going to arrest me. So it's your fault. So he wouldn't take me. So he left me with this human trafficker that left me. He drove up, took John's money, drove up, left me in the middle of nowhere in Turkey.
In Turkey. So her husband got her across the border back into Turkey. So her husband got her out of Syria. The so-called first lady of ISIS, who obviously did not want to be there. Once again, then you're not the first lady of ISIS. If you didn't want to be there, you didn't agree with anything your husband was saying for years, and you heard her for years and years. You didn't agree with anything he was telling you. You hated the hijab. You didn't want to be in Syria. And then your own husband helps you get across to Turkey. He took her all the way into Turkey. You heard her. She just said it. She just admitted it. So again, where did the FBI rescue you from? How did the FBI somehow rescue you? Right? How did the FBI somehow rescue you when your own husband is the one that took you across the border and paid himself for the human traffickers and all that to drive you across the border and all that stuff like that into Syria? So her husband gets her to Syria and then he leaves her, into Turkey. He leaves her in Turkey and then he goes back to Syria because he probably had to finish the mission that the CIA gave him. I'm being facetious, right? Right? I'm being sarcastic, right? So he had to go back to finish his mission, right? For the CIA and the FBI. Right? So he got her across the border all the way into Turkey. So he's the one who saved you. He's the one that rescued you because he took you out of there and took you and left you in Turkey where you were in the safe zone. And then on his own, he went back to finish the mission that he was given by his, by his handlers, right? So he went back, said, you know what? I got to go back because now I got to find my way. I got to make my way up so I can become the second in command of ISIS, right? Which was his mission, right? So once again, you see how the story just isn't adding up, everybody. So as I told you, that part where she was talking about, oh, I owe my life to the FBI and they rescued us and all that, that was ass kissing right there. She was ass kissing because in reality, you heard her story right there. It was her husband who got her across the border from Syria into Turkey, and he left her safe in Turkey. Not the FBI. Her husband did that. Unless her husband is part of the FBI. Maybe that's why she thanked the FBI, because her husband already is an FBI agent. He got her across the border into Syria safely, so you thank the FBI. Ah, there we go. Now it makes sense. So, okay, all right. Technically, the FBI did rescue you because your husband already is an undercover agent who got you across the border and saved you. And plus, he had the money for to pay the people and all that. So, right? All right, I'm being sarcastic. But either way, it was still her husband that saved her, that got her out of there, not the FBI. At least not directly, right? Right? Unless he's an agent. Right? Unless he's an agent, I don't know. Unless he's an agent. But if not, then Tanya, based on your story, what you just said, it was your husband that got you out of Syria into Turkey safely. I mean, it was a hardship, but he still got you out of there. He got you out of there. When he got you to safety, he left you and went back. So he's the one that actually got you out of Syria. He got you away from ISIS himself. That's what she said, everybody. You heard it. She told on herself.
Turkey. I didn't know. I didn't speak Turkish.
Right? Listen again if you
was
missed it.
a
Listen
dirt
again.
report. And he said, no, because you've reported me to the FBI and they're going to arrest me. So it's your fault. So he wouldn't take me. So he left me with this human trafficker that left me. He drove up, took John's money, drove up, left me in the middle of nowhere in Turkey.
In Turkey.
I didn't know. I didn't speak Turkish. It was a dirt road with just grass and fields and hills. And I was
And you had
sobbing.
no idea which.
All right, so let's jump ahead because now she's just going to talk about how Turkey was this and that and it was nothing around and, whatever. So let's jump ahead to this is still part of the story of how she is, getting away, trying to get further into Turkey. So I want to jump up to a minute 114, just again to point out another inconsistency in the story, right? And that is at point hour and 14 minutes right here. All right, you're going to hear another inconsistency. Listen to this. Watch.
And then John had arranged another trafficker, Syrian trafficker, who I could tell was really...
So now, once again, listen. You see how she's saying her husband, first of all, how did he do this? How is he from Syria ahead of time? Because so obviously he must have arranged this stuff before he even got out of Syria. How is your husband able from Syria to call ahead to arrange for a trafficker to meet you at the Syrian border to take you into Turkey, and then while you're in Turkey, he somehow he had arranged another person. She's saying she met another trafficker, basically like a relay. So this trafficker hands her off to another one, and then the other trafficker is taking her the next miles or whatever. So how was he able, and how was he able to know who to contact in Turkey? You know what I mean? Like, how does he have these contacts? That he's able to contact the trafficker to say, meet me at the border at this time. I'm going to be with my wife. Now, okay, here you go. Take my wife further. And then the first trafficker takes her to the next mark, the next guy, who she said, you heard her, she said he had arranged already. So this stuff was obviously arranged ahead of time. So how did your husband how does he have these contacts? Because like right now, I tell you, I wouldn't know who to contact for human trafficking, right? Like, for example, say I went to Mexico, right? Say I went to Mexico, right? And you dropped me off in Mexico. I wouldn't know who the hell to call to help traffic me across the border from Mexico to the United States. Like, right? Like, I wouldn't know. I don't know who the hell to call. I'll be totally lost. So how is it that he has connections? How does he know these connections? Especially connections to human traffickers to help, get you from from the border of Turkey and Syria in Turkey to another person in that's further in Turkey to take you further into Turkey. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, this is the things that raise flags for me. How does he have these contacts? And again, that ties into my secret agent conspiracy again, right? That ties into my secret agent conspiracy again, that a person who's an agent might have connections like that, right? You wouldn't know who to call and who to contact, but your everyday regular Joe, how would they know who to contact? You know what I'm saying? And then he has money. She said he paid money. Where's he getting the money from? Did his father send the money? Right? You know what I mean? Like, where y'all getting the money from for him to pay off the traffickers at each point to take you to the next point? It's again, these are the questions that are raised. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions and trying to put it together to see. All right, let's continue.
Real radical. He had shaven his beard and everything, but he wouldn't look at. He looked at me with.
Oh yeah. This is the part where she throws in a little bit of throws more salt on the wound to try to again demonize the Muslim, because she's saying that this second trafficker guy that she met, she can tell he was a radical, even though he had a clean shaven face. You heard what she said, right? He was a radical. She could tell he was a radical, but he had a clean shaven face. Now everybody knows, right? Everybody knows that If you are supposed to be, now the regular rule of even the basic Muslim, of course, a Muslim man, is to let your beard grow. We know that, right? So again, a radical is supposed to be an extremist, correct? That means they're even more stringent about those things like that. They're more stringent about the beard. They're more stringent about hijab and things like that, right? So how is it, Tanya, that, and I'm just bringing up this point because it's not really relevant, it's not really an important point, but it's important to show, again, her inconsistencies and how her thinking and what she's saying is just, it doesn't match up. So she's saying that once the first trafficker dropped her off, her husband had arranged for another guy to pick her up. And, she wanted to throw in a little salt to make the people feel good that, yeah, these Muslims are so evil. I knew he was a radical, even though he had a clean shaven face. Again, if he was a radical, first of all, like I said, that's just basic Islam, that it's considered a sin or haram to shave your beard off, right? And of course, a radical would be more stringent about that, right? A radical is going to take that even more serious, that he's never going to shave his beard off because he's a radical, right? A regular Muslim, a basic Muslim might be, more lackadaisical, even though it's still wrong, right? It's considered to be wrong, but they might, be more lenient in that regard, right? But she says she knew he was a radical. He was the radical Muslim, with a clean shaven face. The radicals are going to be the most ones to not, definitely, especially not shave it all the way off, especially not have a clean shaven face, because that's considered disobedience to the Prophet, Tanya. So you're showing your inconsistencies and your ignorance by making these claims that, you knew he was a radical. Maybe he didn't want to look in your face because he was shy, right? Not because he was a radical, but because he was shy. He didn't want to look in your face. He didn't want to be staring at you and looking at you. Maybe that's what it was, rather than him being a radical with a clean shaven face. Listen to her again. Listen.
Bringing drinking water, but I was like, my hands were full. I thought John had water. He thought I had water. We didn't have water. My kids had infections. I had an infection. We were sick. But this man was very good, and he took my kids to the bus station. He came and he drove slowly while I pushed up the hill. It was like a 2-mile walk, and then I got to the bus station. I saw my kids were safe. And then John had arranged another trafficker, Syrian trafficker, who I could tell was a real radical. He had shaven his beard and everything, but he wouldn't he looked at me with disgust because I wasn't covered up. My face wasn't covered.
You hear that, right? He was real radical, but he had a clean shaven face. That right there pokes a hole in your story. He was a real radical with a clean shaven face. You can read many statements from scholars and such about the beard and how it is seen as disobedience to the Prophet to shave your beard. Right? It's seen as disobedient to the Prophet to shave your beard, because there's a hadith that said the Prophet said, let your beard grow. Right? So it's seen, the scholars even used to say that in the past, that people, the scholars would say that don't even take knowledge from a person if they have a clean shaven beard, stuff like that, showing that the seriousness of shaving the beard is considered seriously, disliked or haram or whatever, right? So again, according to her, she said he was really radical. If he was really radical, he wouldn't have had a clean shaven face, Tanya. Because that goes against, right? That goes against basic Islamic tenet, let alone trying to be radical. So if a person is a radical, that means he's even that much more stringent about those things. So it's very unlikely that a radical would have a clean shaven face, right? So I just wanted to bring that up just to show another inconsistency and just the ignorance and stuff that these claims that these people make. All right. Let me see. The next point is let's jump up to point marker hour and 18 minutes, because here is where she starts to do the pandering to the West and says that she read the U.S. Constitution or the Declaration of Independence and how wonderful and great it is, and all that kind of stuff like that. So let's get into that and we'll expose her positions on that as well. All right, let's listen.
May, so much more merciful to human nature than a 14th century. And
So basically, the context here is that she's saying she started reading all these Western ideals and stuff like that about justice and freedom and whatever, and it was so much more better than the Quran, which is 1400 years old. That's basically her claim, not knowing though that, you know, not knowing that a lot of these people took because they took their ideas from different places, including Islam, right? A lot of these people that they look up to as the fathers of Western liberty and democracy and all that, a lot of these people read many different materials, including Islamic materials, and they use some of those ideas, right? How many of you know that on the Supreme Court building of the United States right now, that they have an image of the Prophet Muhammad as one of the just lawmakers, right? Right now on the Supreme Court building of the United States, they have like, it has like all the images in like the like carved into, like, you know, like a carvings of the images of the different lawmakers of history, Moses, you know, Hammurabi, whatever ones from, it doesn't matter what religion they came from, what ideology, it just has all these different people to demonstrate that, you know, the United States laws had been built upon the various good laws and ideas of various men throughout history. And they include the Prophet Muhammad on there as being one of the people of whom good laws and things had been acquired in developing the United States laws. Okay? And so, you know, here she is trying to put it down like as if, you know, this is the great and wonderful thing and all that stuff like that, ignoring the hypocrisy of, for example, the United States document. Because we know that when those documents were written, although they sound good, but they sound good because they were good for white men. Freedom and justice and liberty and all that was for white men. That's why they had to make amendments, because when they wrote those things, they didn't envision that those laws and stuff were for everybody, including their own women. That's why later on they had to amend it and they had to give women rights, because when they wrote those things, they sound good. Freedom and justice for all. All men are created equal. But we know that they didn't really mean all men. They really, in their vision, see, when they said all men, they didn't even fathom that the other people really mattered. So to them, all men meant all white men. It didn't mean the Native American man. It didn't mean the black man. It didn't mean the Asian man, right? It didn't really mean all men are created, because in their minds, those men didn't even matter. Like, they were so blinded by their own, you know, arrogance of themselves, that when they said all men, they meant all white men. The other men on the earth didn't even see them as men at all to be included in that statement that all men are created equal. You see, Tanya, but go ahead, you can run the false, you know, the false narrative.
angry Arab god.
And yeah, and Quran is supposedly of the angry Arab god, right? It's the angry Arab god, supposedly.
And who's also misogynist and homophobic and hates everyone who's not a Muslim.
And that one too, hates everybody who's not a Muslim. Where you get that from, Tanya? See, these are the tropes. These are the lies that they make against Islam. No, damn well it doesn't teach us to hate everybody who's not a Muslim. As I've said many times before, Quran says, again, chapter 60, verse 8, as long as the people are not trying to fight you because of your religion or take you out of your homes and drive you off your land, be kind and just to them. That's not hatred, right? That's not hate. Does that sound like hatred to you? That you're ordered to be kind and just to people who, as long as they're not trying to fight you, right? That doesn't sound like hatred to me, right? We have a verse that even says, don't let hatred of a people cause you to act unjustly, Tanya. I thought you were radicalized. Shouldn't you have read, if you were so radicalized, shouldn't you have been reading that Quran to know that? Right? But we know that these people are fakers and liars. We know that a lot of these people, their stories are sensationalized. You heard her through this interview. She clearly was never really radicalized at all. She clearly was never really radicalized at all. And I doubt if she was reading that Quran 2 hours a day like supposedly her parents told her. Especially in all Arabic Quran, especially living in England like you didn't have an English translation Quran. Right? She exposes herself if you listen to this interview carefully, like I'm exposing. And you'll see that there's a lot of holes in this story, a lot of inconsistencies and contradictions, a lot of wrong information, a lot of lies.
And I was like, I found something more beautiful. And of course John didn't appreciate that. But I fell for it. I fell in love. I was like, this is what I need. This is what my children need. This is what the world needs.
You've read Thomas Paine?
I love Thomas Paine. Yeah, I read The Age of Reason, Rights of Man.
Now this is fun. This is the part I wanted to bring you guys on. Here, let me show you something. Let me show you something here. All right, let me show you something here. She mentions Thomas Paine, right? I love Thomas Paine, but guess what, everybody? Thomas Paine, he said bad things about Jews. Did you read that part, Tanya? This is a website called Shmoo, right? What it is, I forgot the name of that thing that they used to. Remember those books that would give you the summary of a book? It kind of give you like the main talking points and summary. Well, this site is like the online version of those books. I forgot what that book is called, what they used to call those books, where it kind of gave you the quick summary of books. Sometimes people would use those when you were like behind, you had to write an essay or a book report, and you were maybe you didn't read the whole book, so you would get that book that kind of gave you the summary of the book. Well, this is a website that does that, right? And here it has the summary of Thomas Paine, just so you can see, right? Thomas Paine, one of his writings was called Common Sense. Well, she says she loves Thomas Paine, right? She says she loves Thomas Paine. So these are some quotes from Thomas Paine's book on the various subjects. Listen, look at what Thomas Paine said about race, since she loved him so much. Oh, I read him, and you too, Glenn Beck. Oh, I love Thomas Paine, yeah, right? But they want to make Islam be the religion that's against the Jews and all that. Well, look at what Thomas Paine said about the Jews, everybody. Let's take a look. It says here, this is a quote from the book. It says, the quiet and rural lives of the first patriarchs have a happy something in them, which vanishes away when we come to the history of Jewish royalty. All right. And here's the explanation in modern English. It says, according to Paine, the first peoples of the world lived a happy existence until the Jewish people ruined everything. Are you happy about that, Tanya and Glenn Beck? You love Thomas Paine, huh? Yeah, he has some good ideas about freedom and justice and liberty and all that. But what about the part where he talked bad about the Jews, huh? Where he said everything, this is all the Jews' fault. Tanya, I thought Quran was the anti-Jewish book, because the Quran is Semitic, so it can't be anti-Semitic, by the way. Arabic is Semitic, so it can't be anti-Semitic. So I use the term anti-Jewish, right? You love Thomas Paine, Tanya. Did you read all his works or what? How do you feel about this, Glenn and Tanya, about what he said about the Jews in his book, Common Sense? Let's look at some more statements about the Jews that Thomas Paine said. He says, government by kings was first introduced into the world by the heathens, from whom the children of Israel occupied the custom. The explanation, monarchy is probably the worst thing in the world as far as Thomas Paine is concerned. And he is more or less blames the Jewish people or children of Israel for bringing this scourge into the world. Yeah, Thomas Paine is lovely. You love him, Tanya. But Quran taught you how to hate the Jews, supposedly. You must have, what, are you skipping over Thomas Paine's sentiment about the Jews? Are you skipping over Thomas Paine's sentiment about the Jews? Is that it? Here's another one. Here's another good one. It says, monarchy is ranked in scripture as one of the sins of the Jews, for which a curse is reserved and denounced against them. So here he says, Thomas Paine is basically saying that one day God will punish the Jewish people for bringing the scourge of monarchy into the world. Just to make things clear, he never really says where he's getting the idea that Jewish people invented the idea of monarchy, but to say that God will one day punish them suggests that the dude is really anti-Semitic, i.e. really anti-Jewish. But she loves Thomas Paine, and Glenn Beck is happy about Thomas Paine too. Here's another statement about Thomas Paine. I wonder what I would love to ask Glenn Beck and Tanya what they think of these statements from Thomas Paine about the Jews, since you said you love Thomas Paine's work. Here's another statement Thomas Paine says. He says, the hankering which the Jews had for the idolatrous customs of the heathens is something exceedingly uncountable. In modern day English, according to Paine, the Jewish people are a bunch of idolaters, meaning that they tend to worship certain people and objects instead of worshiping the one true God. Paine has no clue why the Jews are this way, but he's certain that they are. Again, it's not clear what his evidence is for this claim apart from his own prejudices. But you love Thomas Paine, Tanya. You love him, don't you? And you too, Glenn Beck. Right? You too, Glenn Beck. Now here, interestingly, Thomas Paine also has a problem with the Muslims, as you can see here in this one right here. He takes a jab at the Muslims here, right? It says, but as few or no records were extant in those days, and traditional history stuffed with fables, it was very easy after the lapse of a few generations to trump up some superstitious tale, conveniently timed, Muhammad-like, to cram hereditary right down the throats of the vulgar, right? So he's saying back in the days, it was easy to make up a legend or old story to explain why a certain family got to produce kings instead of anyone else. By the way, the Quran says that, Muhammad is not the father of any of you men, discounting the idea that people could rule based on their family, right? And of course, the prophet spoke against that, ruling based upon your family, meaning that if if one of your family members becomes the ruler, that now everybody in the family gets to be the ruler in succession like a king. We know that the prophet and the Quran spoke against that. So, I guess Thomas Paine didn't really study Islam at his time anyway either, huh? Okay. But those are just a few examples to show you what Thomas Paine had to say about the Jews. He also spoke bad about Native Americans. Right? There's some statements that he made about Native Americans, insulting statements about Native Americans and such. But you get the idea, right? You get the idea. You get the idea. But they love Thomas Paine, she says. She loves him. And she says Quran was the book that had all that evil and hatred about the Jews, right? It's the most, she said, it's the most anti-Semitic. Huh? But she loves Thomas Paine, though. See, these people just be talking. They just be talking out their rear end ignorantly. Same thing same thing, because this whole section right here is where they're going off about how lovely, the Declaration of Independence is, and Thomas Paine's writings on common sense and liberty and all these different things like that. It's so great, it's so wonderful, right? But they ignore the racism of these people. For example, Thomas Jefferson was a racist too, right? Thomas Jefferson, president of the United States, third president of the United States, he was a racist too. Right? So he talked about freedom and justice and all that, but he was a racist against black people, black Americans. He had slaves in himself. Yeah. So it's interesting that he could write about, but again, he wrote about freedom and justice, but he meant it again for white people, particularly white men. Right? So it's interesting how these men could speak about liberty and all that, but they only saw it for themselves. They didn't envision liberty and justice for the red man, the indigenous Native American. They didn't envision it for the black man. Thomas Jefferson had slaves. Right? And talk about sex slaves. He would sleep with his slaves. There was one that he used to have a relationship with. Her name was Sally Hemings. And it's documented. It's proven that he had relations with her. In fact, they did a DNA test not many years ago where some of the descendants of Sally Hemings, to prove that they were related to Thomas Jefferson, and they matched it up with the descendants of Thomas Jefferson and proved that they were related, proving that he obviously was sleeping with his slave. But they love these people, they say. They love them, but look at Thomas Jefferson's racism. Here is a writing of Thomas Jefferson in 1788, where he was expressing his racism about blacks and whites. Right? Shall we read a little bit of it? Let's read a little bit of Thomas Jefferson's racism about blacks. He says, the first difference which strikes us is that of color. That's right. Be racist because the color is different, Thomas Jefferson. Whether the black of the Negroes resides in the reticular membrane between the skin and scarf skin, or in the scarf skin itself. Whether it proceeds from the color of the blood, the color of the bile, or from that of some other secretion. The difference is fixed in nature, and it is as real as if its seats and cause were better known to us. And this is the difference of no importance. Oh, no. And is this difference of no importance? He asked the question. It is not the foundation of is it not the foundation of a greater or less share of beauty in the two races? In other words, isn't one race more beautiful than the others? Meanwhile, he was sleeping with a black woman, everybody. Meanwhile, even though he's trying to say black people are ugly, that if you don't understand that in modern language, he's basically trying to say white people look better than black people, and black people are ugly. Meanwhile, he was screwing a black slave named Sally Hemings. Isn't that something? Black people are ugly, but in your private quarters, you screwing a black slave. And you got her pregnant, too. He had children with Sally Hemings. And again, her descendants are alive, and their DNA matches the DNA of Thomas Jefferson's descendants, proving that he was sleeping with her. So black people are ugly in public. Meanwhile, you got a thing for black women, right? Meanwhile, Thomas Jefferson had a thing for black women. Ain't that something? But he writes this whole thing about black people being different from white people. He's expressing his racism. Let's continue with his racism, right? He says, is it not that the foundation of a greater or lesser share of beauty in the two races? Are not defined mixtures of red and white the expressions of every passion by greater or less suffusions of color in the one, preferable to the eternal monotony which reigns in the countenances, that immovable veil of black which covers all the emotions of the other race? Add to these the flowing hair. By the way, let me stop for a moment for any of my black sisters that watch this. You see why a lot of black men always criticize black women for wearing weaves and wigs that resemble that of white women's long hair and stuff like that? Because we know that it comes from the foundation of white supremacy. You see? And unfortunately, we were taught that we were ugly, right? Our skin is ugly, our features are ugly, the way our hair texture is ugly, and what's beautiful is to have the long flowing hair like the white woman. And so unfortunately today, black women are infected by that disease of white supremacy in their brains, that they think in order to look beautiful, they have to have their hair like white women, right? Now, back in the days, there used to be a thing when we were black and proud and we used to wear our afros. We were proud to accept our hair the way it was. Our hair is different, and we accepted that, and we were beautified in the way that we could, the way Allah made it, right? But unfortunately, the white racism has crept back in, and it took away the black pride of the 1960s and 70s, and now black women are again wearing weaves and wigs that resemble the long, stringy hair of Caucasian women or people of other races, right? So notice that thinking goes way back even to the time of Thomas Jefferson, where he himself is saying, add these, the flowing hair, a more elegant symmetry of form, their own judgment in favor of the white, meaning even black people like white better, right? Well, of course, if they're brainwashed and told that they were nothing but slaves and that they're ugly and they're constantly being told that they were niggers, right? Of course, they would think that white must be better. When you're constantly told that for centuries, right? For centuries and decades that white is better. And as Thomas Jefferson said, the long flowing hair is better and all of that. Well, of course, you're going to think that you must be ugly and think that it must be better to be white. Declared by their preference of them as uniformly as is the preference of the orangutan for the black woman. Well, that's an insult. He's saying that an orangutan likes black women? Damn, Thomas. Wow, what an insult, man. As uniformly as is the preference of the orangutan for the black woman over those of his own species. So Thomas Jefferson is saying that the orangutan monkey liked to have black women over his own female orangutan monkey. Damn, that's an insult. Wow. The circumstances of superior beauty is thought worthy attention in the propagation of our horses, dogs, and other domestic animals. Why not in that of man? Besides those of color, figure, and hair, there are other physical distinctions proving a difference of race. He says they have less hair on the face and body. They secrete less by the kidneys and more by the glands of the skin, which gives them a very strong, disagreeable odor. This greater degree of transpiration renders them more tolerant of heat and less of cold than the whites. Perhaps, too, a difference of structure in the pulmonary apparatus, which a late ingenious experimentalist has discovered to be the principal regulator of animal heat, which may have disabled them from extricating, in the act of inspiration, so much of that fluid from the outer air, or obliged them in expiration to part with more of it. They seem to require less sleep. Really, it's amazing, he's talking about black people here, everybody. They seem to require less sleep. A black, after hard labor through the day, will be induced by the slightest amusements to sit up till midnight or later, though knowing he must be out with the first dawn of the morning. They are at least as brave and more adventuresome, but this may perhaps proceed from a want of forethought, which prevents them from seeing a danger till it's presented. In other words, black people are stupid. You're unintelligent. They do stuff and they don't think about the danger before it happens. You see, this is Thomas Jefferson, Mr. Freedom and Justice for everybody. But he really didn't mean freedom and justice for everybody. He meant freedom and justice for white men. But they love these people. They laud them. They praise them. Right? But no, you don't want that, Tanya, right? You don't want that angry Arab God, Tanya. You'd rather take the racist white devil's opinion about, right, for freedom, right? You don't want that angry white Arab. You don't want the angry Arab God. You want the racist white devil's opinion. You like him instead, right? You rather take his thinking about it, right? Even though he didn't even mean it. Matter of fact, in Thomas Jefferson's time, he wouldn't have even meant it for your people either, Tanya. He didn't mean freedom for even your people, Tanya. Okay? He didn't mean it. He didn't mean freedom for the Native Americans or the people of India or Bangladesh or Pakistan. Well, Pakistan wasn't around back then, but of India. He didn't mean it for them either. But she doesn't want the old angry God. She'd rather take something from the 17th to 18th century of a white racist instead. She'll take his words instead. That's more better. That's better for her than the so-called angry Arab God. Which, of course, we know that's not true either, right? But I just wanted to give you a glimpse into who they praise and who they take, and who, either they're ignorant of the racism of these people, or in true Eurocentric, Western-centric fashion, they overlook the racism and ignore it in order to demonize Islam instead. All right. We're almost done, guys. We're almost wrapping it up. Let me see. I want to jump ahead to, there's so many different things that I took notes on that I could address. You know what I mean? But I know we've been on for a while, so I don't want to keep it going too long. Let me jump up to 129, a minute, 1 hour and 29 minutes, right? And then, remember I told you I had a surprise for you, right? Remember I had a surprise for you? Hope you guys are still tuning in. I had a surprise for you. I told you that she's going to say some things that tie into something that I've always said, which is the underlying motivating factor for these people to be anti-Islamic and bigoted against Muslims. Remember that? Remember I told you that? So the surprise is coming. Get ready. So let me give you this last point, and then I'm going to give you the surprise to show you what is her motivating factor for her anti-Islamic position and why the Western media puts her up. You ready? So let's go. Let's jump ahead to 1 hour 29 minutes. All right, and we're gonna show you how she's kissing the ass of the West and talking this nonsense. All right, so let's listen. Here we go. You ready? Right. Let's start about right here.
Back in West Point, he's a doctor. I mean, but we don't. We're from two different worlds. It's almost like I would never have.
She's basically talking about her ex-husband's father. That I guess he still doesn't like her. I guess. She said they don't get along. The father who was in the military, so he probably still looks at her as a Muslim dirtbag or something. You know what I mean? He probably still her white father-in-law probably still thinks she's he probably blames her for what the son did, probably, right? I wouldn't doubt it, right? He probably blames her instead. He probably thinks that she corrupted his son. So she says that her and the father don't get along. So he probably still thinks she's probably untrustworthy. She's probably still a dirty Muslim to him. Excuse me. All right, but listen to what she says about racism in America. Watch this. This is a true sellout. This is a true wannabe white statement here. Listen to this.
Have anything to do with them if it wasn't for John and my children. So we don't get along too well, but he loves my children, and that's I mean, I couldn't ask for more. Like, my children are privileged.
Must drive you nuts hearing people talk about America. Because
Yeah, I hate like a lot of things that I hear, like the inequality. I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, like, and the racism. People talk about America being racist. I'm like, this isn't true. America's not racist. I've lived in.
Okay, well, Tanya, come talk to black people. See? Tanya, come talk to black people and we'll tell you how we'll tell you about America's racism since you don't know about it. Right? I could go into a whole show just on that alone showing racism in America, even today, how it's institutionalized. Right? I can go into a whole show on just that alone to prove that America is racist, Tanya. But this is the trope, right? This is how you pander to white America. Oh yeah, see, I'm an immigrant, I'm a person of color, and America's not racist. America's not racist. I hate when people say that America's not racist. So basically black people we're just making it up, right, Tanya? Black people are just making it up. When we talk about racism and injustice and you heard her, inequality, she said, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Really? Come talk to Brother Shadid, Tanya, and I'll lay out point by point proof with evidence to show even to this modern day that America is still racist. So come talk to black people, Tanya, and let's see and let us exemplify to you how America is racist, since you don't think that America is racist, right? So now, everybody, let me, as promised, let me give you the surprise, right? Let me give you the surprise on Tanya's and what I've said that always is the motivating thing behind these anti-Islamists like Tanya and the so-called ex-Muslim thing, right? Let me show you this. Let me share it with you. Ready? Here we go. Okay, we'll wrap it up on this. Let's see. We'll start about right here. I want y'all to listen closely now. Look at what she says. Look what is the inspiration or the motivation in her thinking and why she's anti-Islam and anti-Muslim. And she espouses bigotry against Muslims. Listen. And I've said this before, that this is the motivating factor behind all these people. Regardless of their color, this is what motivates them to be bigoted against Muslims. You ready for the surprise? Here you go.
He lived the life that I wish I had been born into. Who doesn't want to be a white American upper middle class? Fact.
You heard that? Who doesn't want to be white? She wished she had that. She wished she was in the place of her husband. Who doesn't wish to be a white American? I don't wish to be white. But she does. Right? She wishes, you heard her. Who doesn't want to be? I wish I had been born in like he was. Who doesn't wish to be a white American, upper middle class white American? Right? You heard her. Right?
Family with a great legacy.
Right? That's point one. Let me give you another example where she again talks about the greatness of being white. Here she tells us that ever since she was a kid, she wished she had been adopted by a white family. Ooh. Listen to her. Watch. Listen to her. 26, about right here. Let's start right here. Listen to it again.
Like when I was a child, I used to wish, I wish I could be adopted by a white family, a middle class, and get away from my parents. Wow. But it's sad.
Right, you heard it? I wish I could have been adopted by a white family. When I was a kid, I never wished I could have been adopted by a white family. Right? Despite the things that we face as black people in America, right? And even though I was born after the civil rights movement, right? But racism was still around there. Those things that Thomas Jefferson talked about the things about the beauty and stuff, those things were being pumped into our heads when I was young, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, right? We saw on TV that all you saw was white people, white kids, white superheroes, white heroes, right? Same thing with the girls. All you saw was the white Barbie and Farrah Fawcett and Brooke Shields and all that stuff like that, right? And that was the image of beauty, and you didn't have no image of any black women that you could look at, or black men that you could look up to and say, I want to be like that. But even despite that, I never felt I wish I could be adopted by a white family. So Tanya is telling on herself. So you saw two examples. She told you that she wished she could have been, right? She wishes she could be a white middle class family. She wishes she had been adopted by a white family. So as I said before, this gives us a glimpse into all. This is what I believe is the mind state of a lot of these people, like her, that come from overseas or whatever middle country they come from, and they come to the West, and then they try to align themselves with the white bigotry of that nation. If they go to UK, they try to get in with the EDL. Like I've seen Indians and Pakistanis who try to like promote the EDL, right? Promote the BNP, right? Over here, if they come to America, then they'll do like she does, and she'll get in with the right-wing conservatives, and she'll use their talking points against the Muslims or against people. Oh, you black people, be quiet. There's no racism. Yeah, Islam is evil. I know. I'm from such and such. I'm from Egypt. I'm from Iraq. I'm from Saudi. I'm from Yemen. Whatever. Yeah, they are evil. The white people are good. They're good. They're great. Right? Because they want to be them. They want to be with them. They want to identify with them. Remember, I've said this on many of my past shows. I always talk about how the motivating factor behind the anti-Islamic movement is white racism at its heart, at its core. It stems off of that. Anti-Islamism, anti-Muslim rhetoric, anti-bigotry towards Muslims, the heart of it comes from white supremacy and white racism. And these people who use this ex-Muslim stuff to promote bigotry, they've adopted that thinking. As you heard her, she said she wished she could have been born into a white family, been white. She wishes that a white family would have adopted her when she was a kid. She wanted proximity to whiteness. And obviously she still wanted it, because when she had the chance, she married a white boy. Whether he's Muslim or not, I don't care. She still wanted a white boy. Right? Of course, who had money and came from a wealthy family. So she still wanted that proximity to whiteness. And in that proximity, in that desire to be white, or to be proximity to whiteness, she adopted the worst of white society, which is the racism and the bigotry. And now here she is propped up like she's some kind of expert on Islam, which she's not. But here they propped her up because she's saying what they like. They always love when they have an Uncle Tom type, or a Sambo type, or a Coon type, who's a person of color, who will on their behalf promote white racism just the same. Right? They love that. Right? Malcolm X talked about those type of people who the white society gets, who is not white, but who's willing to align themselves with the white supremacists and racists in particular, to then espouse bigotry against the people of color who whites don't like either. And they could say, well, look, she's from y'all. She's a, she's whatever, Indian or Pakistani or Bangladeshi or whatever the hell. She's a person of color, and she thinks that same thing we think. See? So she's like an honorary white racist. You see? So I've always said this, that's to me that's the heart of where all this bigotry comes from. And so she proves it. So she's the perfect candidate. She's the perfect candidate to spread this stuff, because I wanted to be white. I wish I was white. I wanted to be white. I wanted to be adopted by a white family. Listen to the other one more. There's one more where again where she's gushing over the love of the whites. Look, one more point, and then we'll end it right here at point 4527. Let's see. So let's start about right here. Listen to this.
And I saw how depressed they were, and basically I wanted out. And I thought, and my parents weren't too religious then. They were just like culturally Muslim.
Once again, she's telling you her parents weren't religious. Remember that.
And so I got married to John. They were happy with me marrying John because he's white, a white convert. American passport.
You heard it once again. Even her family, everybody's loving whiteness. What's wrong with people? Why don't people just love who they are? Now I get it. You've been brainwashed. We understand that white supremacy is global, and unfortunately, many of us come from. We're all victims of it, right? Many of us come from countries where we've been colonized. Here in America, if you live in India or any place in the Middle East, yeah, we all Algeria, Tunisia, wherever you want to go, Bangladesh, we've all had our run-ins with colonialist white supremacy that taught us that whether you were black or brown or red or yellow, that we were, no matter what color we were less than whites, and whites were better. I get it. At the same time, though, why do we allow it to continue on? So her family, she said, you heard her, they were happy. You married a white boy, and he has money, and he's American. Woo, happy. You married a white boy. And I've heard these stories before too, that a lot of people from the Middle East and stuff like that, like they there's something where they I don't know about white converts and stuff like that. And again, is that another way that John became the second in command of ISIS too? That again, because white privilege is in the Middle East as well. So a white boy can come over. You trust him so much. As long as he's saying, I believe in Muhammad and I believe in Allah and all that, you make him the second in command of ISIS. Right? Y'all believe in white privilege so much that he can come over there and say, hey, I want to join y'all, and y'all run him up the ranks to become the highest second in command. Either that or my theory of that he was an agent is the same. Because again, that's still just amazing to me that a white boy could go over there and become the second in command. Unless this all has to do with, being some type of conspiracy thing. Right? Because we know that the government has done that too, that they have concocted terrorist groups, right? They've created terrorist groups, and then, then they can sell it to the American media or the Western world or the Western society to give them a reason to go attack. That's been done as well. That's been, that's been verified as well. That the government has trained these people. They've trained the Taliban. They've trained the Mujahideen again in Afghanistan. That these people are assets of theirs. And then whenever they don't need you, now the Taliban is the terrorist group. Now this group is the bad guys. Even before ISIS was the big thing, that this was when Obama was in office, and the Syrian Libyan thing was going on, and they said they were going to send some weapons over there to help the what was that group? Some liberation group, the Syrian Liberation Army or something, to fight against Assad, and somehow that group turned into ISIS or something like that. Somehow that group that the Americans sent weapons to, remember John McCain was involved in that whole thing, and then they said the group that they sent the weapons to somehow turned into ISIS. So I'm like, is that a coincidence? Because why does that always happen? Why is it that whatever group they help, all of a sudden that group turns into the next terrorist group? The Mujahideen turned into the Taliban, and now we gotta get the Taliban. And Bin Laden was said to have been an asset, and he turns into Al Qaeda. And then they send weapons to help them fight against Assad, and they turn into ISIS all of a sudden. Is that a coincidence, or is that by design? Because it's interesting how you keep doing that, and yet they keep turning into these groups that you no longer, that are now your enemies now. So it makes me wonder. I'm just asking questions. It just makes me wonder how that keeps happening so much, right? Every time it just keeps happening. You see? But in any case, like I said, I showed you the 3 examples of the surprise. That was the surprise I had for you, to show you that you see her thinking. This, as I said, is the heart of where these people are put up in front to be the anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic spokespersons. It's all tied into this desire of white supremacy. Right? It's all tied into that desire towards white supremacy. As you heard her own words. Who doesn't wish to be a white American in the middle class white American? That you heard her. I always, when I was younger, wish I had been adopted by a white family. Not just a better family, right? Somebody who's just regular thinking would say, I just want a better family. Right? If your parents are abusive, you might just say, man, I just want to be with somebody. I wish somebody who's good would adopt me. But she specifically said she wanted to be adopted by a white family. And the last one, oh, everybody's happy because she married the white boy, the white convert. So that's the surprise, and that's the point that makes my point, that all of this stuff stems from, regardless of the color of the person, whether it's Ayan Hersey from Africa, she married a white man too. She married a white man too. So whether it's Ayan Hersey from Africa, Black Africa, or Tania from Bangladesh or India, Pakistan, wherever the hell her family's from, it stems from the underlying factor of white supremacy. Even though they're not white, they can still be white supremacists. You can still sell out your own people and join the white supremacists. And that's what these people have done. And that is what motivates the bigotry. This all stems from white racism and white bigotry. I've always said that. I've said this for years. Even before I got on YouTube. I used to say this back on the old days when we used to do message boards and AOL Messenger and all that stuff. I used to say it back then because I recognized it. To me, it was evident that the people who were promoting anti-Muslim bigotry were really just white racists. And this was just another target of theirs, the way they targeted blacks or Latinos. This was just another target. Islam was just another target because it was a religion of people of color. And it stood in their way. It was a challenge to their power. So they hated it just the same as they hated black people. So the way they would promote lies about black people, the way they would promote lies about Latinos, is the same way they would promote lies about Islam. Because these are all things that white supremacy sees as a problem, as a threat to the dominance of white supremacy. So they must malign it. They must malign it. They must discredit it. They must demonize it. And what she's saying is no different. Her handlers are white supremacists. They don't have to be the Ku Klux Klan. See, that's the thing too. They don't have to be the Ku Klux Klan. They don't have to be neo-Nazis. They are what I would call the sophisticated white supremacists. The ones who wear the suit and the ties. Right? They don't always have to be your outrageous gung-ho Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis type people. Many times, as you saw with Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson wasn't a Klan man, even though the Klan came after him. But Thomas Jefferson wasn't like some kind of, Thomas Jefferson is considered a very intellectual, intelligent man, right? He was considered very, elite, very professional, very intelligent, very outgoing, knowledge type of guy, right? Yet, look how he could speak about look at his racism. So to me, these people are those type of, they're the type of Thomas Jefferson racists. They're not going to be in your face yelling the N-word. They're not going to be out there marching with neo-Nazi suits and shaven heads. They're not going to march with Ku Klux Klan outfits. But their racism is sophisticated. They will try to legitimize their racism through argumentation. But it's still racism, right? They won't curse you to your face. But they'll tell you you're inferior intellectually, like you heard Thomas Jefferson attempting to do. So to me, these people are racist in that manner. Of course, it's a combination. You still have your gung-ho types that'll yell out racism and insults and curses and everything like that. But they're also teammates with the more sophisticated racists who will give you their racism like Thomas Jefferson. They'll try to make their argument sound intellectual. So to me, she's no different from them. And again, she exposed that in those statements that you just heard. All right. So with that, my brothers and sisters, I know this was a long show, but it was a lot to definitely cover. Right. It was definitely a lot to cover here. Right. But I appreciate you sticking in and listening to the show with me. We'll take it from there. All right. We'll take it from there. So, as I always say before I end the show, don't forget that, we could use your support, and that if you ever, if you want to support us, you utilize the links in the description of this video. The Patreon, my Pal Talk is no longer working, so you either have to use the Cash App or the Patreon or the other means of support that I have in the description of this video. All right. I appreciate you all for watching and supporting, and I will talk to you all on the next show. Assalamu alaikum.